Chapter 1831. The three from the Iron Blood Union seemed to be arrogant, despotic, and unbridled. They seemed to be villains who didn't scheme at all and abused their power. However, if one really thought that way, then they would be gravely mistaken. The extent of their treachery was unimaginable. If one really treated them as ordinary boorish fellows, they wouldn't even know how they died. All the treasures this time belonged to me. The leader of the Iron Blood Alliance laughed maniacally. Speaking of which, the heavens are really fulfilling our wishes. To think that we would have such a great harvest after coming here. How satisfying. Just as he was speaking, a group of people with black robes fluttered in the wind. One of them coldly laughed. So the Iron Blood Alliance is actually so rich? You actually intend to monopolize the treasures among so many other powers? He's really confident. So it's you, Grand Elder? This time, your sect came in such a menacing manner. You must be determined to obtain the treasures, right? That person from the Iron Blood Alliance laughed dryly. His tone was filled with respect and fear. Clearly, these people weren't ordinary people. At the very least, they were people who could cause the leader of the Iron Blood Alliance to feel fear. What's wrong? Do you have any objections? The white-bearded First Elder didn't reply, but the person who had originally spoken rudely asked. No, we wouldn't dare. The three members of the Iron Blood Alliance laughed dryly. After greeting them, they quickly walked in. The people who came were the second-ranked superpower in the Eastern Royal Heavens, the Lingxiao sect. The Iron Blood Alliance's ranking in the Eastern Royal Heavens was far inferior to the Lingxiao sect, but the difference in their strength was like heaven and earth. Facing such a superpower, even the Iron Blood Alliance didn't dare to provoke them. Those fellows from the Iron Blood Alliance are becoming more and more domineering. They don't treat us as humans at all. The black-robed man spoke softly. The Grand Elder calmly replied, There's no need to care about those bastards. If we really have a conflict over the soul-suppressing stone, it won't be too late to talk about it. If we really don't have this shit-stirring stick, the variables in this matter will be too small. It might not be beneficial for us. Just as they were talking, they saw three beautiful women in white robes walking over slowly like celestial fairies. Dreamlike veranda. The three people's white robes fluttered in the wind as they strolled over amidst the clamor of the crowd. However, they gave off the feeling that they were three immortals in white robes strolling through the clouds. Ethereal and noble, unattainable. At first glance, people could not help but feel ashamed of their inferiority. The Great Elder's eyes flashed, but he was the first to step forward. Shui Xian has come personally. This old man, Hai Lianghua, pays his respects to you. On the other side, the oldest of the three, a beautiful woman, smiled gently and said, Old Hai, you're too polite. Years had passed since they parted. Old Hai was still vigorous despite his age. His elegant demeanor hadn't diminished in the slightest. Congratulations. Great Elder Hai Mingbo sighed. Shui Xian is the one who is truly as elegant as before, but this old man is already old. How can I be compared to the past? Thinking back to the past, I can't help but sigh. Ha! Shui Xian smiled reservedly and said, Is this also the reason why old Hai is here? That's exactly why. Hai Pinbo naturally understood that this was not referring to the auction treasures before him, but to the soul-suppressing stone located thousands of kilometers away in infinite boundless mountain. People from other continents seem to have come as well. Shui Xian frowned. It's not just people who have come. At least 7 or 8 of them have already come. Old Hai's voice was slightly low. However, the Heavenly Sword Alliance has yet to arrive. Perhaps they don't like this place and won't come. While the forces from other continents were further away, there were still 7 or 8 of them. However, there were still more than 7 or 8 forces that had come. The 7 or 8 forces that Old Hai mentioned were forces of the same level that could threaten super sects like the Soaring Firmament Guild and Dreamlike Secular Pavilion. The fact that there were 7 or 8 of such forces was already shocking enough. However, the Heavenly Sword Alliance, which was the strongest, had yet to arrive. This could be considered a blessing in disguise. I'm afraid not. Shui Xian said in a low voice. According to what I know, the Earth's Heart Pavilion is already on their way here. And the Heart-Seeking Sword Pavilion has already moved. Since these forces have already confirmed their arrival, the Heavenly Sword Alliance will naturally have to come as well. An indescribable light flashed in her phoenix eyes. If Old Hai wants to save some energy, I'm afraid you won't be able to. Old Hai's face instantly darkened. A trace of worry crept onto his forehead. After pondering for a moment, he said decisively, I wonder what Xue Xian means. Elder Hai was clearly an extremely decisive person. His position was clear, and the situation was clear. Since Xue Xian was willing to tell him such important news, the meaning behind her words was clear. Xue Xian smiled gently. Old Hai, you understand? After all, this soul-suppressing stone appeared in our Eastern Royal Heavens. She emphasized the words our Eastern Royal Heavens. Old Hai nodded slowly, expressing his agreement. The wrinkles on his face seemed to have deepened at this moment. He said slowly, Xue Xian is right. Although we will inevitably have to fight to the death, the one who benefits in the end will still be in the Eastern Royal Heavens. Xue Xian smiled. Old Hai's words are reasonable. I also agree. Hai Mingbo's skinny figure stood there. When the night wind blew, it was as if it was going to blow him away. After a long time, he finally said dryly, Xue Xian, if this is the case, we will have to fight. When he said, we will have to fight, his voice paused. He had clearly deliberated for a long time and made up his mind. However, it was still so difficult for him to say it. As for Xue Xian, when he said these two words, she gently smiled, nodding, but didn't say anything else. Their gazes met. Hai Mingbo's eyes were as silent as an ancient pond. However, Xue Xian's eyes were filled with a dense coldness. At this moment, everyone in the Purple Cloud City felt an indescribable palpitation in their hearts without any warning. At that moment, it was as if some ancient giant beast had suddenly descended upon the Purple Cloud City. Even Chu Yang, who was in the auction hall, could not help but feel a chill in his heart. In his arms, Brother Hu's hair all stood up. Then, Xue Xian and Hai Mingbo stepped forward at the same time. Xue Xian was in front and Hai Mingbo was behind. They entered the Heavenly Armament Auction Hall one after the other. The moment their gazes met, they had already made a decision on this matter. Although the Soaring Cloud faction was known as the second strongest faction, its actual strength was still lacking compared to the Dreamlike Veranda. Because the Dreamlike Veranda was in the entire Heaven Imperial Court. It was also one of the top 3 factions in the Heaven Imperial Court. It was truly one of the strongest factions. If the Soaring Cloud faction was really ranked in the entire Heaven Imperial Court, it would have already been squeezed out of the top 10. Great Elder, you are too hasty in making such a decision, a black-clothed man said to Hai Mingbo through telepathy as he walked. Hai Mingbo's white beard fluttered. He replied in a deep voice, no matter what, you must remember that this is the Eastern Royal Heaven. Then he said heavily, this is our home. Then he asked softly, what is home? The black-clothed man's expression turned cold. His entire body immediately straightened up. This had always been a very sacred word. No matter who it is, no one can snatch something from my home. That is ours. High up in the sky. Yen Russian's expression was solemn. He stretched out his hand, and 2 wisps of telekinesis flew naturally into a strange-looking circular plate in his hand. This was a tacit agreement between high-level martial artists. Snow Immortal and Hai Mingbo instantly formed a deep tacit understanding between the 2 factions. Yen Russian exhaled softly. This matter was probably going to be a big one. Just as he was frowning, he saw that in the distance. Purple light flashed. The Eastern Royal Heavens official army was approaching. Yen Russian flew over. Greetings, Great General Lan. Greetings, General. Yen Russian bowed, his heart relaxed. Since Great General Lan had come to oversee this place, there was finally a real person in charge here. He could finally put down the huge rock in his heart. What is the current situation? Great General Lan asked sternly. The situation is extremely complicated. It is hard to explain. Yen Russian said, According to the current situation, 7 of the top 100 factions in the Heaven Imperial Court have already arrived, including the Dreamlike Veranda, the Lingxiao faction, the Iron Blood Alliance, and the others. The other 2 factions in the region are also on their way here. They will arrive by tomorrow at the latest. The other Heaven and Earth sects are also rushing over. Yen Russian took a deep breath. According to my guess, the factions that have arrived at this place are at least 70. I'm afraid there are no less than 70. 70? Great General Lan frowned slightly and said slowly, in that case, there are at least 300 factions that have arrived at this place? Yen Russian calculated carefully and said, yes. He was somewhat impressed. Great General Lan had just arrived and had only heard some information from him, but he could already calculate this number so quickly. Such intelligence was really frightening. It was not easy to calculate this number because it involved too many unpredictable factors and too complicated. Therefore, Yen Russian's final guess of the factions that had gathered here was between 228 to 323. Of course, the Heaven Imperial Court would not only have so few factions. Not to mention 300, even 30,000 would be considered a small number. This was because the moment the Soul Suppression Stone appeared, the nearby sects and clans would naturally rush over in a frenzy. These sects and clans were mostly from the Eastern Royal Immortal realms. After some time, everyone would know that the Sky Sword Alliance, the Dreamlike Veranda, the Earth's Heart Pavilion, the Heart-Seeking Sword Pavilion, the Lingxiao faction, and the others were also gathered here. Naturally, most of the smaller factions would give up their intentions. With so many big factions here, what was the point of coming? To pull a tooth out of the tiger's mouth? Or to court death? Even if he did manage to gather all of them, he would only end up being buried here. Therefore, the ones who came in the end were those big factions. The smaller factions would definitely not get involved in this mess. Those who had already come here were reluctant to leave, but staying would be risky. After much consideration, there were probably some who would leave. In the end, those who stayed were probably only 300 or so. Chapter 1832. Yen Russian sighed in admiration. Great General Lan, who came up with this number, had not only taken into account the development of the situation, but also thought of the people's hearts in the blink of an eye. If not, how could he be a great general and I am just a lowly subordinate? Open the sky gauze umbrella and set up camp. Under Great General Lan's command, the clouds in the sky surged. Remember this. The pugilistic world is the pugilistic world, and the government is the government. The pugilistic world is the pugilistic world of the sects, and the government is the government of the people. If the sects can still abide by the rules, there is no need to interfere. Let them fight to the death. If anyone dares to break the rules, no matter who it is, they will be hunted down and killed. Great General Lan gave the order murderously. Great General? Yen Russian hesitated. What's the matter? Speak. Great General Lan turned around and asked. This time, the people from the domain. Yen Russian said with some difficulty, in the end the people from the domain take away this treasure, what should we do? Great General Lan's dignified face turned gloomy. His face darkened and he did not speak for a long time. The sects of the Eastern Royal Skies are weak compared to them. Yen Russian said in one breath. If we are defeated this time and take away, then, you mean, the Eastern Royal Skies will not be able to raise its head in the future? Great General Lan turned around abruptly. Yen Russian raised his head and answered. But that is only the pugilistic world. Great General Lan's voice was stern. Even if it is the pugilistic world, it is still the Eastern Royal Skies' strength. Yen Russian said in a low voice. Forgive me for being blunt. If we lose in the pugilistic world, it will be His Majesty's reputation. Impudent! Great General Lan shouted angrily. The clouds in the sky shook violently. The great Emperor and the great Sage have made an agreement. The pugilistic world's matters are pugilistic world's matters. Great General Lan's voice was heavy. If this agreement is violated, His Majesty will also be humiliated. Moreover, I am afraid that other places will follow suit and use their power to interfere in the pugilistic world's matters. This will have far-reaching consequences. Yes. Yen Russian's heart skipped a beat. General Lan's concerns were reasonable. Moreover, this is the Eastern Royal Heaven. General Lan said. This is where the headquarters of the dreamlike mundane world and the Lingxiao faction are located. He believed that they would definitely put in a lot of effort in this matter. If the other party still manages to take away the inheritance under the soul-suppressing stone in the end. Great General Lan turned around and said coldly, that's because they are useless. And it's not just any ordinary failure, General Lan said in a heavy tone. Then, he asserted, the discussion of this matter ends here. There's no need to say more. Yen Russian's face was grim. However, after a while, his eyes suddenly lit up. Great General Lan's words had a lot of meaning behind them. The location of the headquarters. General, you're right. You've thought it through thoroughly. It's my negligence, said Yen Russian. What did I say? I didn't say anything. General Lan's face was solemn. Yes. Yen Russian replied solemnly. The pugilistic world is the pugilistic world. The government is the government. General Lan nodded in satisfaction. What's going on down there? They actually gathered all the sects in the city? It's an auction. It's quite a big event, said Yen Russian. A trace of warmth appeared on his face. Moreover, the host of the auction is quite interesting. Oh? The host of the auction is interesting? General Lan raised his eyebrows. How interesting. To be able to make a facial paralysis like you say the word, interesting. It's really not easy. This person saved my life previously. Yen Russian said solemnly, he's my newest sworn brother. Sworn brother? General Lan turned his head with interest. How old is he now? What's his cultivation level? What's so good about him? What's so important about him that you value him so much? General Lan couldn't be blamed for being curious. Everyone had the pride of being an elite and the dignity of a profound martial artist. Everyone had their eyes on the top of their heads and never took the people of the pugilistic world seriously. Moreover, the Eastern Royal Sky had its own restrictions. The officials were not allowed to have too much interaction with the people of the pugilistic world. Yen Russian was upright and was the one who carried out this order the strictest. But this person actually received Yen Russian's heartfelt recognition? It was an unexpected surprise. He's very young, only 20 years old, but he's already at the beginning stages of the Earth class. Yen Russian didn't know how to continue the introduction. Should he just say that the sworn brother he had high hopes for was actually a super good for nothing? General Lan smiled faintly. Only 20 years old and already at the beginning stages of the Earth class. Not bad, not bad. Yen Russian, your foresight is indeed extraordinary. Hearing this, the surrounding officers roared with laughter. Beginning stages of the Earth class. In their eyes, he was even more insignificant than an ant. Not to mention that he was only 20 years old. This was a huge age gap. Yen Russian actually became sworn brothers with such a young man. It was as if an ancestor and a grandson had become sworn brothers. The difference in seniority was at least 108,000 miles. It was simply a little crazy. Yen Russian faced the crowd calmly and said calmly, that brother of mine, one day, all of you will envy me. Envy me from the bottom of your heart. Ha! Everyone laughed. No one cared. Almost everyone thought that Yen Russian was stubbornly refusing to admit his mistake. What was there to envy about a mere beginning stages of the Earth-class martial artist? General Lan stroked his chin and glanced at Yen Russian from the corner of his eyes. He was a little tempted. Should I go down and take a look? But I can't let anyone know about this. While everyone was chatting and laughing in the sky, the auction below had already begun. Minister Chu personally stepped forward and stood on the auction stage. He held the gavel in his hand and looked like an experienced auctioneer. There were more than 300 people sitting below. And these people, the strength of any one of them was higher than Minister Chu's. But the way Chu Yang looked at them now was as if he was looking at millions of purple cloud dollars. These guys were the true definition of rich, All of them were tycoons, huge money bags. They didn't need to be ruthless. How could they face themselves? Wealth came from danger. The timid would starve to death and the bold would be stuffed to death. People still had to look at money. So Chu Yang stood up with high fighting spirit. Welcome, esteemed guests, to the Celestial Armament Auction Hall. Today's auction is very sudden and rushed. I believe everyone is very surprised. Even I did not expect this a few days ago. Chu Yang's speech was very unexpected. It was very different from the usual auctioneer's speech. He didn't say what was being auctioned right away. Instead, he started to talk about trivial matters. However, none of the people below said a word. This auction hall was a little strange. Everyone was puzzled. According to my original plan, it should be opened half a year later. And with the strength of a small newly established clan, we can't come up with anything that can interest you. Chu Yang continued to talk about random things. But 3 days ago, a mysterious guest came to me. This mysterious guest is very powerful. With my weak cultivation, I couldn't see anything. So I agreed. Chu Yang said vaguely. But everyone below looked at each other and smiled. Looks like this guy was forced? This is a little interesting. This mysterious guest asked me to hold this auction within these 3 days. And a treasure was auctioned on the spot. Any one of these treasures is a rare treasure that I have never seen before. If these treasures really belong to me, they don't all need to belong to me. Even if one of them really belongs to me, I will choose to keep it forever. After all, for a small person like me, if news of such a thing is leaked out, it will be a disaster and not a blessing. It will only cause trouble. Chu Yang spoke without thinking. But the expression on his face was very serious. In fact, it was very sincere. The people present didn't doubt Chu Yang's explanation. In fact, Chu Yang's explanation was the most reasonable explanation. Everyone present was aware of Chu Yang's identity, origin, and recent experiences. Chu Yang's strength and wealth shouldn't be in possession of the treasure that was being promoted at this auction. And he definitely wouldn't be able to keep it. Even if he were to sell it, the wealth he would get from selling it would still be enough to wipe out his entire clan for a commoner like him. This mysterious guest said, "You can set the starting price of all the auction items. It doesn't matter how much you get in the end." Chu Yang said proudly. And this mysterious guest's only request is that the time of this auction must be before the soul-suppressing stone incident completely explodes in infinite boundless mountain. And the earlier the better. At this point, Chu Yang stopped. But the people below could no longer maintain their composure. Because these words, not only could they understand, there was also a very inconceivable speculation. While they didn't really doubt Chu Yang's words, they had their own thoughts about this guest's request. What did he mean by the starting price wasn't important, the final price wasn't important, the only important thing was the time? Why? What did this person's inconceivable actions mean? Shui Xian and Ling Shao clan's first elder Hai Yanghua's seats were all good seats. The distance between them was only a few hundred feet. Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other at the same time. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Then what exactly was the reason? First elder, what do you think? Shui Xian's lips didn't move, but her voice had already reached Hai Yanghua's ears. This mysterious guest is most likely from our eastern royal heavens. Hai Yanghua's expression didn't change as he transmitted his voice back. That's right, I think so too. Shui Xian nodded. Also, the purpose of the divine weapons being auctioned now is to help the sects of the eastern royal heavens, in hopes that we can succeed in this soul-suppressing stone incident. There's no doubt about this. Hai Yanghua nodded in agreement. Tomorrow is the second anniversary of the proud world's birthday. I will do my best to show my gratitude to everyone for their support. Glorious, proud of the world. Mighty, proud of the world. United, proud of the world. Handsome, confident, proud of the world. Handsome, proud of the world. Chapter 1833. I believe that the reason why old Hai agreed with my judgment should be very similar to mine. Right now, the sects from the other worlds have yet to arrive. They have no chance to participate in this auction that is so valuable. Shui Xian's voice was heavy. Hence, No matter who won the bid for this mysterious guest treasure, they are definitely from the Eastern Royal Heavens. Grand Elder Hai Mingbo nodded his head but didn't reply. Clearly, he completely agreed with Shui Xian's words. Divine weapons, supreme treasures that can increase one's cultivation for a short period of time, spatial equipment, all of these are things that can be used immediately. That's right. Since they have put in so much effort to set up this auction, the identity of this mysterious guest must not be exposed. That should be the case. Since the other party is worried about not being exposed, there's a high chance that they are some special characters. That's right. In that case, how many special characters are there in the Eastern Royal Heavens? There aren't many people who have the ability to do so, and those who are willing to do so are even fewer. There are truly very few of them. In summary, we can basically confirm that this mysterious guest is trying to increase the strength of the Eastern Royal Heavens, increasing the chances of the Eastern Royal Heavens winning this auction. Indeed. Since they want to increase our strength, it means that this mysterious guest has already determined that with our current strength, we aren't a match for the other worlds. You can say that. In other words, this mysterious guest has a very good understanding of our strength. That makes sense. In other words, this person has a very good understanding of the other party's strength. That's absolutely right. This person's cultivation must be very high. Without a doubt. Then who is this person? Shui Xian repeated her question. But after careful consideration, the meaning of this question was completely different. The identity of this mysterious guest was almost obvious. Hai Mingbo was tongue-tied and a look of respect suddenly appeared on his face. In that case, could this person be the person who placed a sword on the soul-suppressing stone? As Shui Xian spoke until here, she suddenly thought of something. This question startled him. This question was too sudden. Not only did it startle him, it also startled him. Hai Xiaobo was stunned by this question. In fact, when Shui Xian first started the conversation, she did not associate the mysterious guest with the owner of the sword. Instead, after a series of questions and answers, she gradually connected the two together. However, this connection was actually very reasonable. That was why he asked the last question. In fact, he didn't have such thoughts beforehand. The two of them looked at each other and felt the importance of this matter. Layers of shock rose in their hearts. Without prior consultation, they began to pay more attention to this auction that had appeared out of nowhere. Although it wasn't to the extent that they were determined to get their hands on the auction items, it wasn't to the extent that they had to get their hands on them. However, his state of mind was completely different from when he had just arrived, where he was in a state of, losing is my fate, gaining is my fortune. Next is today's first auction item. Chu Yang's eyes seemed to casually slide over everyone below. Chu Yang could already confirm this from the looks in everyone's eyes. Everyone present had already attracted enough attention. In fact, it had even piqued their curiosity. Furthermore, it had also aroused the same sense of danger and anxiety as those of the Eastern Royal Heavens. Yes, looks like I don't need to worry about my safety for now. No matter if it's me or the rising Chu clan, we have nothing to do with these auction items anymore. Even after the auction, no one will find trouble with me because I can't buy it or because it's too expensive. Because the role I'm playing is just a small role that has been forced to do something beyond my ability. Furthermore, no matter what, I've already helped that mysterious guest with one thing, so I still have some face. If anything happens to me, that mysterious guest with mysterious origins and unfathomable strength will definitely not sit by and do nothing. Just this point alone was enough to make everyone here wary. Therefore, other than the Iron Blood Alliance and a few other evil sects, who were still somewhat eager to make a move, everything else didn't matter anymore. The first auction item is a sword that has already reached the peak of the saint level. Chu Yang waved his hand. Two white-robed youths joined forces and walked out slowly with a sword in their hands. These two youths were both ordinary people. Everyone present could see this, but their faces were delicate and pretty, and their figures were tall and straight. Their eyes were full of spirit and did not disperse. Together, they held the sword and slowly walked over. Their white robes made them look even more otherworldly. Everyone's eyes lit up. Hai Lianghua gathered his power in his eyes and looked over. His original intention was naturally to look at the sword, but he inadvertently included the two youths in his line of sight. This was something that couldn't be avoided, but that unintentional glance caused his eyes to shine brightly. It was as if he had discovered a rare treasure. In fact, he really did discover a rare treasure. No, it should be said that it was even rarer than a rare treasure. Because the sword was still in its scabbard, he didn't feel much for the time being. However, the aptitude of the two youths holding the sword had already made his heart burn with passion. These two youths clearly didn't have any cultivation and didn't show any signs of having cultivated before, but there was actually spiritual energy flowing around their bodies. Hai Lianghua's eyes widened. They actually have spirit-gathering bodies? And both of them have spirit-gathering bodies. Hai Lianghua opened his mouth wide and couldn't close it anymore. Such outstanding aptitude, how many years had it been since the Soaring Firmament sect had appeared? And those few seniors, any one of them was a legendary figure who had achieved earth-shattering achievements. It was also because of those few people that the Soaring Firmament sect had developed into the super sect it was today. It could be said that to the Soaring Firmament sect, their contributions were the greatest. However, in the end, for them to have such achievements, it was mostly due to their own innate aptitude. If they didn't have such aptitude, they definitely wouldn't have had such outstanding achievements. And now, that almost legendary aptitude. There were actually two of them in front of him. And each of them had a top-grade spirit-gathering body like pure gold and unpolished jade. I'm not dreaming, am I? Even if I'm dreaming, this dream is a bit too beautiful. These two youths looked to be at most 12 or 13 years old. Their faces still had the natural immaturity of a child, but they already had the vicissitudes of life. They had been through the trials of life, but their hearts were still pure. This was the kind of talent that all the big sects yearned for even in their dreams. They were completely like flowers that were watered in a greenhouse. No matter how outstanding their aptitude was, to truly become a talent, they still needed to be honed, needed to gain experience. And these two people were completely unnecessary, because they had already tasted many of the difficulties and sufferings of the human world. Such people, as long as they were given a chance, they would only grit their teeth and continue to climb towards the peak, because they would never allow themselves to fall back to the lowest level of society. They had already suffered enough. Such outstanding innate and acquired geniuses. And two of them appeared at once. They were actually not discovered by anyone. It's others who don't have eyes. It's because I'm too lucky, too lucky. Hai Lianghua quietly closed his mouth, but he still couldn't suppress the excitement in his heart. He then turned to look at the people around him. His heart felt a bit guilty. I beg the gods, I hope no one else saw it. But when he saw Xue Xian, Hai Lianghua's heart couldn't help but sink. Perhaps others wouldn't see it, but Xue Xian's cultivation was higher than his. She was also more knowledgeable, how could she not see it? Hai Lianghua calculated in his heart. This Xue Xian was not someone who was easy to talk to, and her strength was also extremely strong. If she really wanted to use force, he could only watch helplessly. The only thing worth rejoicing over was that these two youngsters were both male. Perhaps there was still hope for Hai Lianghua, as long as Xue Xian didn't fight with him. How could they be worthy of fighting with him? Xue Xian's eyes lit up when she saw the two. Although there were many geniuses in her sect, but young geniuses like these, the more the better. No sect would complain about having too many. But it was a pity that these two were male, and it was currently an eventful time. Adding more variables might not be worth it. If one of them was a girl, then no matter what, she would have taken her into her sect. Although the spirit-gathering body was far from Qing Wu's abnormal physique, it was still a very rare and extraordinary talent. On the high platform, a sword light flashed, and in an instant, a dense and cold aura filled the entire place. The long sword was unsheathed. Everyone's attention was focused on the sword. This sword, according to what the guest said, is called Dragon Slayer. It can cut through gold and iron, and cut through hair. Chu Yang held the sword in his hand, and a cold light flashed. When holding the sword, it can absorb sweat and will never slip. When attacking, it can naturally use the wind to increase the speed of the attack, and when defending, it can also display an amazing effect that is 20% higher. Of course, there are even more amazing effects, but this needs to be discovered by the new owner of the sword, and it is inconvenient to reveal it publicly. Besides, the most important point is that this sword is currently still an ownerless divine weapon. Ever since it was forged, it has never been stained with blood. Everyone present here is an experienced senior. There is no need for this junior to elaborate on the difference. Chu Yang's voice was filled with endless enchantment. Once this sword recognizes an owner, it can automatically generate a sword spirit, and when facing an enemy, it will be alert and gain the initiative by striking first. Down below, almost everyone's eyes were burning with passion. If this was really the case, then the quality of this sword was already far higher than the standard of a peak saint level sword. Just as Chu Yang said, the difference between an ownerless weapon and an ownerless weapon was like heaven and earth. If someone else used a treasured sword, and used it again, no matter what, it would be the second owner. To be able to use it freely, it would undoubtedly require a lot of time to adjust, and a lot of time to nourish and adapt to it. Because the divine sword had a spirit. Going to work overtime, eruption in the early morning, eruption in the whole day tomorrow. Celebrating the 2nd anniversary of Ao Shi. Through the wind and rain, we walk together. Through the bumpy road, you and I are together. Chapter 1834. As the saying goes, a loyal minister would not serve two masters. This principle was suitable for both people and swords. A truly good sword, as long as it recognized a master, it would never change. Other than its owner, other people will feel unfamiliar with the shoe in their hands. You won't fit in with the rest of us. This was not a psychological problem, but a real existence. But this sword in front of them was an ownerless sword, and there was no blood. Just like an ignorant toddler, all of his thoughts are still a blank piece of paper. If you draw black, it will be black. If you draw red, it will be red. All the concerns mentioned before could be ignored. As long as I get it, it will be mine. I only need a simple nourishment, and I will be able to become one with the sword. This was the true meaning of a top-grade sword. This dragon-slaying sword has a base price. Everyone is free to bid, and the highest bidder will get it. Chu Yang said. As he said that, he waved his hand, and the two white-clothed youths bowed respectfully and walked down the stage. Hai Pinbo's heart bled as he watched. Where is this person? How could such a genius be ordered around like a servant at such a young age? What a waste of resources. At this moment, Hai Pinbo had a strong urge to crush this little blind boy to death with a single slap and then take the two geniuses away. If he could obtain these two geniuses, even if he couldn't obtain the auction items, or even if he couldn't obtain anything from this soulstone event, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad deal. But when he thought of the mysterious auction owner, and the even more terrifying owner of the soul-suppressing stone sword, Hai Pinbo finally dared to act rashly. He could only bear with it for now. That Chu brat, just you wait, just because you mistreated these two geniuses? You won't be any better. Clang. The divine sword was unsheathed. Chu Yang raised his hand into the air, and then let go. The sword body quietly stopped in the air, and an endless cold light was reflected from the sword body. The light radiated in all directions, and it was cold and indifferent. The streamlined sword body was sharp. The tip of the sword was almost invisible, and the cloud patterns on the sword body were like dragons, making everyone's breathing quicken. The light was cold. This sword. They were coldly waiting for the owner of ZJ. The crowd instantly quieted down. Although this sword had a base price, anyone could buy it. The value of this sword. It was not something that could be measured by money. The final transaction price would definitely be ridiculously high, shockingly high. Moreover, if it wasn't for a sky-high price, it would be a waste of this divine blade. Everyone looked at each other. No one was willing to make a bid. Chu Yang smiled faintly. He didn't have any reaction to this situation. He just placed a small hourglass on the stage. He said, "Before the sand in this hourglass runs out, if no one makes a bid, then the price will be lowered. Announce that this item is not being auctioned." We won't repeat the auction. As he spoke, he opened the hourglass and turned it upside down on the table. The fine sand of the golden necklaces began to flow downwards. Judging by their speed, they would be gone in a few breaths. This sudden move was simply too ruthless. 10,000 purple cloud coins. Finally, someone couldn't hold it in any longer. One of them stared at the empty sword with burning eyes and immediately asked for 10,000 purple coins. 10,000 purple cloud coins, that was an astonishing amount of wealth. Looking at the entire purple cloud city, the number of people who had such wealth could not be counted with one's fingers. But here, this was only the starting price. Even 10,000 purple coins? Such a divine weapon, and you're only offering such a price. This is simply blasphemy. Ha! Another person laughed mockingly. I bid 50,000 purple coins. On the stage, the corners of Chu Yang's mouth twitched. The price of 10,000 Xia coins had surprised him. Previously, a certain king of hell had sent many divine weapons to be auctioned off, and they had earned quite a lot. However, he had never seen any divine weapon being auctioned off for 10,000 Xia coins. Although a heavenly-grade divine weapon could not be compared to a saint-grade divine weapon, this was only the first bid, and the price was already 10,000 Xia coins. This was truly beyond Chu Yang's expectations. However, this surprise didn't last for long. In just one sentence, someone had already increased the price. And it was to 50,000 purple coins? It had increased by 5 times. What kind of situation was this? Could this be the true definition of being rich? But Chu Yang's mental fortitude was still quite strong. Although he was surprised, he didn't stop talking. This friend here bids 50,000 purple coins. Is there a higher price? Is there a higher price? 50,000 purple coins going once. 50,000 purple coins going twice. 50,000 purple coins going thrice. Wait! Someone stood up. I bid 150,000. Oh my God! 150,000? Did the people here not treat money as money? This friend here bids 150,000 purple coins. 150,000 purple coins going once, 150,000 purple coins going twice. Chu Yang was really excited now. The price had tripled again. This price, someone was very satisfied, so he subconsciously increased the speed of the auction. 200,000. I bid 200,000. A person in white stood up and said with a frown, Auctioneer, please wait a moment. I have something to say. Shui Xian looked at the person in white and frowned. Someone from Snow Mountain? Hai Libo nodded. That's right. Snow Mountain sect, the third largest sect in the eastern royal heavens. I didn't expect someone from Snow Mountain to bid so early. He was going to say shit. Shui Xian smiled bitterly. The attraction of this sword was really too big. May I ask what kind of advice this guest has? Chu Yang asked. To be honest, Chu Yang didn't have a good impression of the person who interrupted the auction. Even if the person in white raised the price by another 50,000 purple coins, Chu Yang wouldn't care about him at all. Of course I have advice. This person in white was obviously not very nice to someone. He said in a low voice, Let's be honest. I'm not very nice to you, the auctioneer. I really don't know where Heavenly Armament Pavilion hired you. Have you ever been an auctioneer? How can you host an auction? You're shouting too fast. You didn't even give others time to think. We were still deliberating when you finished shouting shit 3 times and wanted to close the deal. Auctioneer, did I really say that? You really haven't hosted an auction before, right? Black lines appeared on Chu Yang's forehead. This sentence was really said by the person in white. He really hadn't done any auctions before. He had only watched and participated in auctions. What the hell? Had he really been an auctioneer before? Just now, he had been too excited. Because the previous price was in line with his expectations, the speed of his speech had naturally sped up a bit. Of course, it was only natural. Of course, he did it on purpose. Now, he was indeed being blamed. Chu Yang chuckled. Then, he seemed a little embarrassed as he said, This guest has good eyesight. This is indeed my first time doing this. To be honest, a few days ago, I wouldn't have thought that this would happen. There would still be a day when I host an auction. If it wasn't for that guest's request, I wouldn't have held this auction so hastily. I will pay more attention to the rhythm later. Please forgive me. Seeing Chu Yang's awkward expression, that person couldn't help but laugh. I also understand your difficulties. It's just that the rhythm of this auction, it's better to speak slowly. You're like a war. Others don't even have time to think. Chu Yang nodded. Actually, if it was any other item being auctioned, the auctioneer would shout like this. Of course, it wouldn't be in the right order. Instead, it would be more popular. The faster the auctioneer shouted, the smaller the profit margin. But now, it was very different from usual. Everyone wanted these treasures. The faster the auctioneer shouted, the fewer chances others would have. What if the auctioneer didn't have time to bid and the auctioneer shouted and closed the deal? Wouldn't that be too sad and depressing? The rhythm of the auctioneer's bidding slowed down. Everyone enthusiastically bid. The price soared. It's just that the increase in the price is getting more and more intense. It's no longer increasing by 50,000 or 100,000 renminbi. Instead, it's increasing by 10,000 or 20,000 renminbi. Even so, in a short period of time, the price rose from 200,000 to 350,000. This price was naturally calculated in purple cloud dollars. In fact, in today's auction, everyone was bidding in purple cloud dollars. They were even using 10,000 as the base unit. There wasn't even a 1,000. It was just that when the price reached 350,000, the increment rate of the auctioneer's bidding slowed down significantly. Not only did it become 10,000, but it also slowed down by a few times. Chu Yang could also tell that the actual value of this sword, or rather, the price that the auctioneer was willing to pay, had reached its limit. It had even exceeded the limit. Those who were still bidding now were those who were determined to get it. 400,000. 400,000 purple cloud dollars. This guest has bid 400 million purple cloud dollars. Is there anyone who wants to bid higher? Is there anyone who wants to bid higher? 400 million purple cloud dollars going once. Chu Yang's saliva flew everywhere. The one who bid 400,000 purple cloud dollars was the top-ranked sect in the Eastern Royal Heaven, Hao Ran sect. Going twice. 400,000 purple cloud dollars going thrice. 500,000 purple cloud dollars. The man in white from Snow Mountain sect gritted his teeth and raised the price to 500,000 purple cloud dollars. The Snow Mountain sect was known for their swordsmanship, and the attraction of such a divine blade to the members of the Snow Mountain sect was unparalleled. The man in black from Hao Ran sect stiffened and finally sat down helplessly. It wasn't that they couldn't afford to raise the price by 500,000 purple cloud dollars, but it was too much to spend 500,000 purple cloud dollars for this sword. Moreover, there were still many good things to come. In the end, the dragon-slaying sword was sold to Snow Mountain sect for a sky-high price of 500,000 purple cloud dollars. They exchanged the money and the goods. The elder from Snow Mountain sect hugged the sword and grinned from ear to ear. Although it was worth more than the price, the sword that was most suitable for ZJ was the best. It was priceless. It's just 500,000 purple cloud dollars. It's nothing. The elder smiled and used the sword to cut open ZJ's blood vessels. He used ZJ's blood to smear the sword all over. Then he used his divine sense to nourish his body and closed his eyes to rest. He wanted to establish a connection with the sword spirit as soon as possible. The other disciples from Snow Mountain sect twitched their lips. That was a total of 500,000 purple cloud coins. Chapter 1835. A total of 500,000 purple cloud coins. In exchange for a sword, and the great elder said that it was just 500,000. I really can't take it anymore. How is this just 500,000 purple cloud coins? How is this 500,000 purple cloud coins? That's 50 trillion purple cloud coins. With this astronomical figure, the entire Snow Mountain sect, all of their family members, all of their assets, all of their expenses, including the elixirs used for cultivation, would be able to last for a whole year. Br Chu Yang's face was calm, because the money from the auction was not his, but a mysterious guest's. But in his heart, he was overjoyed. The mysterious guest is me, the great young Master Chu. Again, young Master Chu really didn't expect that this sword could be sold for the sky-high price of 500,000 purple cloud coins. In his heart, 200,000 purple cloud coins was his limit. He was very satisfied with that amount. The last time he auctioned a heaven-grade weapon, he only sold it for 300,000 purple cloud coins. The difference between purple cloud coins and purple cloud coins was not a matter of how much the difference was, but how many times the difference was. As expected, he was a fool with a lot of money. Actually, Chu Yang had overlooked the reason why he is willing to pay such a high price. What he said earlier had a subtle effect on the market. Right now, everyone present thought that this sword and treasure were specially taken out by a senior to increase the strength of the people of Eastern Royal Heavens. This was a huge favor in itself. In fact, the starting price was not set at the start. So, these people deliberately raised the price. They could not let that senior suffer a loss, right? And this sword was indeed worth it. So, just like that, the auction went down. That was why Chu Yang was able to sell it at such an unprecedented high price. Of course, it was worth the money, but there were many other motives behind it. If Chu Yang thought of it, he would definitely exclaim that he had hit the jackpot by a stroke of luck. It actually had such a miraculous effect. As expected, even if the heavens gave it to me, it could still be sold at a sky-high price. Next, it was time for the auction of the second item, the Peak Saint level treasure saber. This time, the starting price was still the same. But this time, there were obviously fewer people participating in the auction. In the Heaven Imperial Court, there were more people who used swords. There were also fewer swordsmen. But it was also because there were so few of them. The saber-wielding martial artists who were able to come to this place were all experts in saber-wielding. Their cultivations were not ordinary, so every single one of them was determined to win. The sword moved swiftly. Generally speaking, if a martial saint used a heaven-grade sword, he would be able to unleash the strongest power. However, a saber was different. Saber. Easy to learn but hard to master. It had always been said that he was the king of soldiers. Therefore, the quality of the saber depended on the saber user. He had always had high expectations. A swordsman's lifelong wish was to own a divine saber, especially since the saber in front of him was ownerless. In other words, once he obtained it and nurtured it with his soul to a certain extent, the quality of the saber would improve along with the improvement of the user. ZJ was a heavenly human. This blade was of the celestial grade. He had completely become one with the saber. This kind of value was immeasurable. In this round of the auction, in total, there were only 3 people competing for it. But this wave of competition made people feel a chill in their hearts. Any one of these 3 people was a tyrant who could move unhindered in the world. Each of them was an expert in saber wielding. This made Duan Songkong, who was originally very dissatisfied with Chu Yang taking out such a treasured saber for auction, a little shocked. Because any one of these 3 people was above ZJ. No, it was a luxury to even compare ZJ with them. How are the levels of these 3 people? Chu Yang asked through telepathy. I can't tell how they are. Duan Songkong touched his nose. The only thing I can be sure of is that one of them is definitely not below Lu Yongxiang, who fought with me previously. Oh. Chu Yang nodded. Is that infinite invincible saber here? Well, some of them are. Chu Yang said thoughtfully, most of the sword-wielding experts belong to sects, but the saber-wielding experts are basically loners. This part is a little strange. You are also a saber wielder. Do you have any opinions on this? Duan Songkong was startled. Then he frowned and was stunned. Yes, there was indeed such a phenomenon. For example, infinite invincible saber, the 3 people in front of him, and ZJ. However, Chu Yang didn't care about him. This was because the competition between the 3 of them had reached its climax. I'll pay 250,000. A bearded man stood up suddenly. His eyes were as sharp as blades as they slid across the faces of the other 2 people. You think you're so great just because you stood up? Another man also stood up and crossed his arms. I'll pay 300,000. In the distance, in the corner, a feminine voice said, 350,000. Who wants to compete with me? The bearded man shouted furiously, 400,000. Lightning snake, giant spirit saber. Both of you already have your own weapons. Do you really want to go against my thunder-frenzied saber? Lightning snake, giant spirit saber. Thunder-frenzied saber. When these three names came out one after another, all the people participating in the auction finally knew the identities of these three people. Lightning snake, the #1 assassin of the younger generation in the Eastern Royal Heaven. Celestial saber. Giant spirit saber. It was said that this person was the #1 bandit in the Eastern Royal Heaven. He had roamed the world for many years, but he was never stopped by anyone. As for thunder-frenzied saber, he was both good and evil. He roamed alone and was invincible. His cultivation was unfathomable and he had never lost a battle. The whereabouts of these three people had always been erratic, and they were elusive. Who would have thought that they would actually be gathered here? When they heard that the competitors were actually these three people, many people sucked in a breath of cold air. Facing these three people, even Xue Xian and Hai Mingbo felt a headache. These three people's strength, in their eyes, or in the eyes of the two sects, were not considered to be shit. But to deal with such people, unless it was a one-hit kill, otherwise, if they were to escape, with their elusive methods, anyone would have a headache. You may not be afraid, but what about your sect disciples? At this moment, the feminine voice of Lightning Snake said, Thunder, when it comes to weapons, no one will think that there are too few of them. I'll pay 410,000. I quit. Gigantic Spirit Blade raised his hand and smiled, but no one knew what he meant. Now, it was obvious that Lightning Snake and Thunder Frenzied Saber were going against each other. Since it was purely to cause trouble, Giant Spirit Saber did not want to get involved. If he did, it would be equivalent to offending these two people at the same time. Because no matter what, Lightning Snake would raise the price. If ZJ followed suit, not only would he offend Lightning Snake, he would also offend Thunder Frenzied Saber. Thunder Frenzied Saber was obviously envious of this saber and was determined to get it. 450,000. Thunder Frenzied Saber's chest heaved up and down as his eyes widened. 400,000, Lightning Snake said softly. Both of you, please wait for a moment. On the stage, Chu Yang said, Everyone, since you want to buy a saber, you must first have money. If you bid maliciously but are unable to pay the price in the end, our auction house will not allow it. Can the two of you please show us your assets and confirm if you have the qualifications to buy this saber? Chu Yang could tell that Lightning Snake and Thunder Frenzied Saber were definitely not on good terms. If they continued to bid like this, the price might be raised to the sky, but this money was definitely not easy to get. These two murderous stars, no matter who cheated who in the end, they would still be cheated by ZJ. Although Chu Yang's words came abruptly, it was still reasonable. The auction items in this auction were all from that mysterious guest. If it was just a failed bid, it would be fine. But if they bid maliciously and were unable to pay in the end, the auction fees would fall on the auction house. With such a sky-high price, even if they sold the entire Chu clan, it would not be enough. On this point, everyone present also understood Chu Yang's difficulties. Of course, Chu Yang had said so. If someone bid maliciously and did not pay in the end, it would be obvious that they were acting shamelessly and would definitely offend that mysterious guest. This was a consequence that no one present was willing to bear. Meddlesome little... Lightning Snake's soft voice sounded. After a while, he said, I withdraw. When he said these three words, it was tantamount to saying that he did not have so much money on him. His soft voice sounded from east to west. Which expert present was an ordinary person? However, from the beginning to the end, there were only two people who could truly distinguish his ways, Xue Xian and Hai Ningbo. The host is right. I will round it up to 500,000. Thunder Frenzied Blade laughed heartily. Although you've backed out, you've still made a bid before. Just for your fair words, I'll add another 40,000. Oomph. In the shadows, Lightning Snake let out a dissatisfied snort. Lightning Wild Blade strode forward and went backstage to settle the payment procedures. Chu Yang, who was on the stage, could only sense a sinister aura lingering around him. It was like a venomous snake that was about to devour its prey. It was cold and filled with evil intentions. It was obvious that the lightning serpent hated ZJ because of this. Lightning Snake did not dare to provoke that mysterious guest, but how could he care about a small fry with only Earth-grade cultivation? What he did not know was that Chu Yang did not care about him either. At least today, Lightning Snake would not make a move against ZJ. Because it was too obvious. And after today, he believed that Lightning Snake would not have the energy to care about ZJ for the time being. The result was better than Chu Yang's expectations. Before tomorrow, Lightning Snake would not have the energy to care about ZJ. Lightning Snake. Hai Ming Bo shouted. I heard that your small saber technique is not bad. You dare to be so arrogant in this kind of auction. The rumors are indeed true. Do you want this old man to spar with you? I don't dare. Great Elder is too serious. Lightning Snake's arrogance instantly disappeared without a trace. Facing the number 1 elder of the second largest sect, Lightning Snake kept quiet out of fear. No matter how strong he was, he could not be stronger than a large sect. Chapter 1836. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Great Elder Hai Yang Bo Hai reprimanded the Lightning Snake without any reservations. However, the Lightning Snake didn't even dare to reply. Its only thought was to find trouble with Chu Yang. This was precisely because one was too strong, and the other was too weak. To put it in a more vulgar way, it would be, the persimmon picks on the weak. He did not dare to provoke Hai Yang Bo Hai, but he hated Chu Yang to the bone. Everyone present was a hero of a region. So, they had already seen through the thoughts of the Lightning Snake. In fact, they could even understand the thoughts of the Lightning Snake. However, very few people would sympathize with Chu Yang. This was the sorrow and helplessness of a person in a lower position when facing a person in a higher position. The result would be the same if the opponent was Chu Yang or the Lightning Snake. However, the person in a lower position was Chu Yang. It was just that everyone, including Shui Xian and Elder Hai, discovered that at this moment, a person had silently entered the auction house. Yishua, the consort of Yishua, sat down. This auction house was already filled with people. Every seat was occupied, but he sat down the moment he entered. It was as if there was an empty seat waiting for his arrival. Then he sat down and crossed his legs. The person who was originally sitting on this seat was in a daze for some reason. Then he realized that Yishua was sitting on the ground 10 feet away. However, there was another person sitting there instead of the original WZ. That person was surprised at first. Just as he was about to step forward and question Yishua, he suddenly realized, actually, Yishua had been sitting here from the start. It was not because of Yishua, it was because of Yishua. That person sitting on that seat was supposed to be there. That seat was set up for that person. Everything was natural and natural. If ZJ were to force his way in, it would be out of place. Since that was the case, what right did ZJ have to ask others to let him have his way? Did he want to break the harmonious atmosphere? Yishua shook his head and actually sat on the ground to participate in the auction. There was no awkwardness at all. And this was a strange scene. Even Shui Xian and the others were surprised to find out. Then this person observed Chu Yang with great interest. His eyes were actually examining Chu Yang. He muttered to himself, "This is that little bastard's sworn brother?" Iran sucked in a breath of cold air as he said this. He stared at Chu Yang in disbelief and muttered, "Oh my God! This guy was actually, since the beginning of time, from the beginning of time to the present, the one and only number 1 trash. Who could be more useless than him? Such a material. Not only is this unprecedented, I'm afraid it's also the last. Isn't this too useless?" Yen Russian's foresight has really changed my opinion of him. I'm completely shocked, amazed. It's just too amazing. Damn it. Next up was the third item, the Purple Crystal Jade Essence. It was just that the popularity of the Purple Crystal Jade Essence auction had greatly exceeded Chu Yang's expectations. In Chu Yang's opinion, what the Double Heavens continent thought was good might not be good here. There was a huge disparity between the two planes. In the Chongtian continent, the purple crystal jade essence was a rare treasure, but in this place, it might not be considered a good thing. However, he had neglected a very important point. As long as it was something good that could help one's cultivation, it was a good thing no matter which plane it was in. In fact, the higher the level of the plane, the greater the demand for this kind of thing. Moreover, the Double Heavens continent had accumulated for hundreds of thousands of years. There were too many good things that no one had discovered. And after the Double Heavens imperial court had plundered for millions of years, all the mineral veins that they had found had basically been distributed cleanly. Even those that could still be mined had long been occupied by others. Therefore, although the purple crystal jade essence was not a rare item in the Double Heavens imperial court, it was still a good thing that was hard to come by. Moreover, Chu Yang had given a huge piece of purple crystal jade essence that weighed more than 500 kilograms. Even though everyone present was extremely experienced and knowledgeable, they had never seen such an exaggeratedly good thing. On the auction stage, the purple crystal jade essence that was as big as 2 tables emitted a mesmerizing glow. With one glance, everyone's expectant gazes could no longer be shifted away. The third auction item is the purple crystal jade essence. It looks like a complete piece, weighing a total of 1,735 kilograms. Just as Chu Yang finished speaking, countless divine senses wrapped around him. Their target was definitely not Chu Yang. They were all attached to the purple crystal jade essence. Obviously, everyone was simultaneously checking to see if this piece of purple crystal jade essence was really as Chu Yang had said. It was a complete, natural piece. If it was really a complete piece, its rarity would undoubtedly be several times higher. After a while, everyone did not linger and immediately retracted their divine senses. Everyone let out a sigh of relief in their hearts. It was actually real. There really was such a complete piece of purple crystal jade essence weighing more than 1,700 kilograms in this world. Chu Yang waited with a smile. When he sensed that all the divine senses had been retracted, he took a deep breath. The rules are the same as before. Everyone, please make your own bids. The highest bidder will still win. The moment Chu Yang's words fell, the crowd below erupted. 50,000. Before the first auctioneer had even finished speaking, someone else followed. 100,000. Purple cloud dollars. 150,000. 250,000. 300,000. It was only a matter of time before the price was raised to 500,000 yuan. Was this a shaming situation? Chu Yang's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Never in his wildest dreams had he imagined that this piece of soul of the purple crystal would be so popular here. Was this a joke? Right at this moment, the person from the Iron Blood Alliance slowly stood up. His gaze was somewhat disdainful as he looked around the place. Then he coughed lightly. Chu Yang stared at him, a bad feeling rising in his heart. This guy. Is he shaming me? He's not shaming me, is he? Is he going to kiss her in front of so many people? Not sure if Chu Yang's earlier thought was a jinx, but the crowd really slowly quieted down. That person smiled a little. He said, "The Iron Blood Alliance wants this piece of purple crystal jade essence. 100,000. Purple cloud dollars." He chuckled. "May I ask, who else wants to compete with me?" His tone was full of disdain. His meaning was, whoever competes with me is competing with the Iron Blood Alliance. That means they're causing trouble for the Iron Blood Alliance. Naturally, I'll cause trouble for them. In an instant, the whole place was silent. Absolute silence. Among the forces present, there were many who were not weaker than the Iron Blood Alliance. But the Iron Blood Alliance was the kind of existence that no one wanted to provoke. It wasn't that the Iron Blood Alliance was very strong. It was just that there was a bottom line for people like them. At least, they had the demeanor of someone from a super sect. They belonged to the category of hooligans. Even if they couldn't kill them, they could discuss them to death. The most important thing, as long as you were targeted by the Iron Blood Alliance, You wouldn't be able to do anything smoothly in the future. They can even cause trouble for you when it comes to ship matters. If you were strong, they would scatter and not be able to catch up. However, the weaker ones would definitely be eaten clean by them, including their skin and bones. As for the location of the Iron Blood Alliance's headquarters, no one knew where it was, and there was no way to eliminate them. Facing such a group of people and organizations, it was really annoying. No one said a word. Audiobook frowned. Thinking about it, he finally decided to act up. It wasn't worth it to get into trouble with the Iron Blood Alliance over such a small matter. Although that piece of purple crystal jade essence was rare, to a super sect like the Sky Tower, it was still beneficial to get it. Shui Xian, who didn't care about the Iron Blood Alliance, looked at Chu Yang with interest. She wanted to see how Chu Yang would deal with this matter. Would he compromise? Or would he retaliate? Or would he have other options? Chu Yang frowned. This bastard finally came out to mess things up. The last person to enter frowned and looked at the Iron Blood Alliance. He muttered, Iron Blood Alliance? The Iron Blood Alliance is considered a shitty organization. If they were targeted by Yen Russian because of this, they would be finished. This guy really doesn't know what's good for him. She raised her head and blinked. She could almost feel the murderous aura emanating from Yen Russian's face as he watched them from above. He's really courting death. Yen Russian was furious. How dare he cause trouble here? Looks like the Heaven Imperial Court really needs to exterminate the bandits. If the Iron Blood Alliance actually caused Yen Russian's government to exterminate the bandits because of a forced sale, they would probably kneel down in front of Chu Yang. No matter how strong the Iron Blood Alliance was, they couldn't withstand a single blow from Yen Russian's government. To cause such trouble for no reason, it would be a catastrophe for the Iron Blood Alliance. But it was a pity that he didn't know what to do. The person from the Iron Blood Alliance looked at Chu Yang with a strong sense of oppression. He said, "The Chu clan is small. I've already made a bid. Why aren't you saying anything? Hurry up and do what you have to do. Hurry up and start the countdown." Chu Yang laughed and said, "Since you're already married, you're part of the in-laws family." Haha. When they heard this, everyone was stunned for a moment. Then they burst into laughter. This sentence was really a stroke of genius. Bid and married were two words that sounded exactly the same. Moreover, this guy had announced so loudly just now. Initially, no one had thought of anything else. However, Chu Yang's sudden mention of in-laws had ignited the fuse. Everyone was already unhappy with the way the Iron Blood Alliance did things. Now that someone stood up for them, how could they not take the opportunity to add insult to injury? Hence, the laughter was as loud as it could be. It was as sarcastic as it could be. It was as unpleasant as it could be. The face of the person from the Iron Blood Alliance turned purple. His long hair fluttered even though there was no wind. His blood-red robe also fluttered like waves. He glared at Chu Yang and said maliciously, "Junior, I declare that you're finished." Chapter 1837. This person's slender eyes shot out a ferocious look. He sneered, "Do you really think that mysterious expert will stand up for you? Who do you think you are? You're just an ant." This guy was not stupid. When Chu Yang said this, he immediately guessed where his confidence came from. Baidu search P. Siom, Chu Yang said lightly, "Then you can wait and see. Let's see if you're done for first, or if I'm done for first. Let time prove whose words are more true." This person hesitated. Chu Yang's tone is too certain. His life is in danger at every turn. However, when he thought of the benefits of taking back such a large piece of purple crystal jade essence, his blood boiled. The sovereign had been waiting for this purple crystal jade essence for 3,000 years. The sovereign's East-rising purple chi mysterious technique only lacked a complete piece of purple crystal jade essence to reach the highest level. Compared to the current situation, what was a small risk? Moreover, he had brought less than 1,000,000 purple cloud coins with him this time. Most of it was his own savings and not public funds. Moreover, looking at the auction of the purple crystal jade essence, 1,000,000 was definitely not enough to stop it. If he did not do this, how could he get it? Did he really have to give up his life savings? If other sects won it and he went to rob it, then the hatred would be even greater. He might as well take this gamble. He smiled sinisterly and said, "If that's the case, then I'll wait and see if you're done for or I'm done for." Ha! He then shouted, "Fierce words are fierce words. An auction is an auction. I've been waiting for a long time now, but no one else has made a bid. The result is obvious. This piece of purple crystal jade essence is mine. We, the Iron Blood Alliance, aren't unreasonable people. But if anyone dares to obstruct us, then don't blame us for fighting to the death." This sentence was very tough, but also very shameless. It showed that he was using his power to oppress others, tearing away the last bit of cover. Many people snorted angrily. The words of the Iron Blood Alliance's man had obviously angered everyone. Shui Xian's eyes flashed. She wanted to stop him, but in the end, she did not move. The Iron Blood Alliance was nothing to be afraid of. But was it worth it because of Chu Yang? Is this Chu Yang the same Chu Yang? Looking at his age, he seems to fit the criteria. I must not allow him to harm Mo Qingwu's Dao heart. Might as well let the Iron Blood Alliance deal with it. Snow Immortal did not move. The others naturally wouldn't move either. It was one thing to be angry, but it was another thing to truly go against the Iron Blood Alliance. Especially when there were no benefits to be gained and it was only a momentary dispute of personal feelings. The gains wouldn't make up for the losses. The person who had just come in wrinkled his brows tightly and looked at Chu Yang intently. He also wanted to see what choice Chu Yang would make. Chu Yang's approach was very generous. He smiled and said, "There was a small interlude just now. Now it's over. The last bidder, the Iron Blood Alliance, bid 100,000. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? 100,000 going once. 100,000 going twice. 100,000 going thrice, sold." Bang! The gavel fell. Chu Yang looked at this person. He smiled faintly and said, "Sir, you can go and handle the formalities now. You'll pay and I'll deliver the goods." He couldn't afford to skimp on the money. As for the future, it'll depend on your luck. This person laughed and said, "No matter what happens, the Iron Blood Alliance will take it on." A faintly discernible voice said, "Based on what you're saying, can I interpret it as the Iron Blood Union shouldering this matter? Regardless of the consequences? Regardless of the cost?" This person's heart skipped a beat. This voice came abruptly and was even more ethereal. The source of the voice was obviously in this hall, but he just couldn't tell where it came from. Not to mention him, even Snow Immortal and Hai Lianbo couldn't tell where this voice came from. But at this moment, he was like riding a tiger. He couldn't give in. He said in a low voice, "That's right. The Alliance Master needed this thing, so the Iron Blood Alliance naturally had to take it on. Now that the matter had been settled, any consequences and costs were worth bearing." That ethereal voice said, "Very good, very good, very good, very good." It said, "Very good," continuously, and then there was no more sound. Chu Yang said indifferently, "This auction house is the Chu clan's territory. Please leave your name." This person smiled strangely and said, "Since I've offended you, I might as well offend you all the way. I'm the third Alliance Master of the Iron Blood Alliance. I'll be the third greedy wolf Gu Xinwu." As he said this, he waved his hand and laughed. He went to pay the money without asking, "Young, I heard that you're a doctor, and your medical skills are quite good, but it's a pity that you only look at men and can't do it. As the saying goes, you can't treat yourself if you can. After the auction, quickly go see your injuries. Otherwise, don't blame me for not reminding you when you die. This time, it's because you didn't respect your elders, so I'll teach you a small lesson. If there's a next time, I'll slaughter your whole clan. Of all the things you shouldn't have done, you shouldn't have encouraged others to mock me." A stream of energy silently floated near. Chu Yang only felt pain in his chest, and his head was dizzy. He spat out a mouthful of blood. This greedy wolf Gu Xinwu actually did it. The reason was that Chu Yang's words of "married" had caused everyone to mock him. He didn't dare to offend so many people at the same time, but he didn't have too many scruples about Chu Yang, especially when he was so weak. Just as he said, since I've already confirmed my crime, I might as well offend him even more. Chu Yang's body shook. He chuckled and said, Iron Blood Alliance. Iron Blood Alliance. He spat out another mouthful of blood. He hurriedly took a heavy pill to suppress the injury. He took a deep breath and instantly regained his composure. The three people of the Iron Blood Alliance had already disappeared without a trace. Chu Yang laughed and said as if nothing had happened, Now, we'll begin the auction of the fourth item, a pair of yin-yang poisonous dragon eyes. The auction will be the same as before. No reserve price, the highest bidder wins. Chu Yang's tone was very calm. It seemed as if nothing had happened. He was still as elegant and graceful as before. He was still as skillful as ever. He stirred up the atmosphere. But with so many experts below, they all felt a chill in their hearts. If an ordinary person encountered such a situation, they would have already retreated in shame. But this guy in front of them had suffered such a huge loss, yet he could still continue to host the auction as if nothing had happened. He didn't even have the slightest bit of a strange expression. This was somewhat strange. Almost everyone had the same thought. This Chu Yang, he must have a backup plan. Of course, if there was no backup plan, then there would be no follow-up. This meant that the mysterious guest might not exist. Then, Chu Yang was just a thick-skinned person without any morals. Let's see how this matter develops. Brother Hu, who was in the quiet room at the side, let out a low roar and silently chased out. Since he had the guts to cause trouble, he must have the consciousness to bear the consequences. But the price of accepting a loan, not everyone could afford it. That was all. The person who came later looked at Chu Yang, the corner of his mouth revealing a smile. He muttered, Interesting, interesting. A very interesting little thing. Immediately, he also suddenly disappeared. An empty chair quietly appeared in the packed auction house. No one noticed when this person came, and no one noticed when this person left. Hai Lianbo transmitted his voice to Snow Immortal. Immortal, what do you think will happen? Snow Immortal smiled lightly, between the two. But no matter what, this Chu Yang cannot be underestimated. As long as there is a certain amount of space and time to develop, he will not be a small thing. Hai Lianbo nodded in agreement. Men had their own pride and hot-bloodedness. It was already not easy for Chu Yang to endure now. If he could still do so in the future, then it would be even more precious for him to endure now. Elder Hai, I have a faint premonition. Snow Immortal said lightly, Iron Blood Alliance, this time, they have really kicked an iron plate. I'm afraid they are going to be very unlucky. Hai Lianbo smiled bitterly, I also feel the same. After being arrogant for so long, they are defeated. Justice is not in people's hearts, but strength. That's all. The rest of the auction process was very smooth. The fourth auction item, the yin-yang poisonous dragon eye, was sold by Chu Yang for 500,000 purple cloud dollars. The next item, the soul of the purple crystal, was sold for a sky-high price of 2 million purple cloud dollars for the dreamlike veranda. As for the last piece of starwood, it was sold to Hai Lianbo of the Lingxiao clan for 1,300,000 purple cloud dollars. Chu Yang also truly understood that in this Heaven Imperial Court, only strength was recognized, regardless of right or wrong. In terms of value and practicality, the starwood was undoubtedly more precious than the soul of the purple crystal. However, the soul of the purple crystal's price was much higher than the starwood's. Even that piece of purple crystal jade essence, if not for the Iron Blood Alliance's interference, its final price would probably be close to the starwood's. Although there were some complications along the way, Chu Yang was still very satisfied with the results of this auction. Even with the Iron Blood Alliance's interference, the total amount of purple cloud dollars obtained from this auction was still close to 1 million purple cloud dollars. This huge amount of wealth was enough for him to develop at ease in the Heaven Imperial Court. Even if he had to support tens of thousands of people, he would not have to worry about food and water for the next 100 years. Of course, that kind of extravagant cultivation of heavenly treasures was not included. Near the end of the auction, Chu Yang received 17 to 18 telepathic messages at the same time. These people all hoped that they could have a chat with Chu Yang after the auction ended. Among them were the two top figures of the dreamlike veranda and the Lingxiao clan. They were not the only ones with good eyesight. There were also quite a number of other people who could tell the aptitude of those two youths. Naturally, there was no one who did not want such geniuses. Chu Yang's eyes darted around. His joyful expression disappeared, and his face was full of worry. He murmured, "Why are so many experts looking for me?" The speaker was not unintentional, but the listener was even more intentional. Chapter 1838. Chu Yang's voice was very low, but what were the cultivations of the people present? Even if it was 1,000 times lower, they could still hear it clearly. Everyone who had the same idea immediately became worried. When they looked at each other, they knew that there were so many people who had the same idea as them. They couldn't help but feel bad. Even when the two geniuses had been discovered, everyone had hoped that they had good foresight, that they would be able to recognize the talents and hope that they would be lucky. However, the reality was cruel. If you had good foresight, why couldn't others have good foresight as well? Now, there were too many wolves and too little meat. It was really awkward. Hai Lianbo suddenly stood up and said loudly, "Elder Hai Lianbo of Soaring Heaven faction invites little brother Chu to have a talk. What do you think?" With Hai Lianbo's high-profile appearance, the other small sects sighed sadly and completely gave up. With such a huge figure, what else could they compete for? Did they dare to compete? Of course, there were also some big sects who didn't give up. We're indeed not as good as Soaring Heaven faction, but we're not weak either. Besides, the conditions that we offer may not be worse than Soaring Heaven factions. Dreamlike Mundane World Pavilion and Elder Hai Lianbo of Firmament Spiritual Mountain would like to have a talk with Brother Chu at the same time. What do you think? Since both sides had decided to form an alliance, Shui Xian naturally had to help Hai Lianbo. Besides, she still had to figure out Chu Yang's identity. She had to show up. With Shui Xian's appearance, the other big sects also gave up and didn't dare to be rash. If it was only Hai Lianbo alone, everyone still had some confidence to compete. But now, Dreamlike Mundane World Pavilion had also shown up. They also expressed their stance and joined forces with Soaring Heaven faction. Then, the rest of the people had no hope at all. Although everyone was unwilling, they could only swallow their anger. Facing two big figures at the same time was definitely not a joke. Chu Yang smiled happily in his heart and said, "Seniors, let's meet in the back hall later." Everything was under control. Everything was going according to plan. Everything was as planned. Divine Dr. Chu is really resourceful. It's only been a few days since you broke through the void and came up here, but you've already built up a large business in Wuxia City and even gained the favor of the city lord here. Now, he had become the hall master of the Heavenly Armament Auction House, and this was his first auction transaction. This set an astonishing record. The rare treasures displayed are even more eye-opening. I believe that even if this achievement isn't unprecedented, it's enough to show disdain for the current generation. Hai Lianbo had an amiable look on his face. He was smiling as he gave his New Year's greetings. But he revealed Chu Yang's background in just a few sentences. This was not surprising at all. With Hai Pengbo's status and influence, it was very easy for him to find out Chu Yang's details. He didn't even need to speak. He only needed to give a look, and a large number of people would investigate everything clearly. In the end, they all came to him. As a newcomer to the imperial court, to be able to achieve such accomplishments, this old man is extremely impressed. However, there's one thing that I don't quite understand, and I hope that little brother can clear it up for me. Hai Pengbo stroked his beard and said lightly, "Logically speaking, this auction shouldn't have landed in your hands." Hai Pengbo's eyes, which were deep in his eye sockets, shot out a sharp light. He said lightly, "There are quite a number of qualified auction houses in this heavenly imperial court. In this Wuxia city, it's enough to find hundreds of houses. Why did it have to be you? And you haven't even been auctioned before." Chu Yang was stunned. This great elder Hai's face changed too quickly. The first sentence was still praising him for being young and promising, and the second sentence became a blatant interrogation. However, this sentence was very reasonable. Even if the mysterious person who took out these rare treasures really couldn't come out personally and wanted to hand over some matters. But when it came to choosing, even if there were 10,000 rounds, it still wouldn't be Chu Yang's turn. However, such a great thing just had to land in his hands? What was the reason? Chu Yang knew that if he were in Hai Pingbo's shoes, he would also ask, and he would also ask so directly. This question not only pointed to the crux of the problem, but also cut off Chu Yang's chance to change the topic. He didn't even have time to think about other answers, and had to answer directly. In this way, the chances of it being the real answer were naturally the highest. Even if it wasn't the real answer, it would definitely be very close to the real answer. Shui Xian, who was at the side, looked at Chu Yang without blinking, obviously also waiting for the answer to this question. Why me? At this moment, he naturally couldn't not answer this question. However, this question was really not easy to answer. Because if he didn't answer well, all the things that Chu Yang had done before would all go down the drain, and even a great danger would descend. This matter does indeed have a hidden story behind it. Chu Yang made up his mind and said, Elder Hai asked directly, so I might as well tell you the whole story. Anyway, everyone is a part of the Eastern Royal Heaven, and this auction is actually entrusted by someone. And from there, it's a thread. Entrusted by someone? Thread the needle? Hai Pengbo smiled and said, I wonder who that person is? Where is he now? This old man is all ears. Elder Hai, Shui Xian, what I'm about to say may be a little beyond common sense, but it's something that I've personally experienced. Whether the two of you believe it or not, this is the truth. I'll say it first, and I hope the two of you won't take offense. Chu Yang said very sincerely. Little brother, you can say it one by one. The two of us naturally believe that you won't casually make up a story to fool us. This old man and Shui Xian have been honed for countless years, and it's not like we can't tell the truth from the lies. Elder Hai said in a low voice, but the meaning in his voice was already faintly discernible. It's like this. Some time ago, a patient fell from the sky, and it's really a person who fell from the sky. Chu Yang revealed a very awkward expression and pointed to the sky. Shui Xian and Hai Pengbo looked at each other and nodded. The matter of a patient falling from the sky was certainly very sudden. Only a few people knew about it. However, it wasn't that no one knew about it. And these two people had already known that such a strange thing had happened in Chu Yang's place. In fact, any bit of strange information in Purple Cloud City within a year had been collected by these two big sections. Now that the soul-suppressing stone ruins was involved, any little clue could be of great use, and intelligence naturally ranked first. So, a person falling from the sky, this kind of thing that sounded absolutely inconceivable to ordinary people, was a matter of course in the ears of these two people. This junior has some experience in medical skills, and in the spirit of a doctor's benevolence, I tried my best to save this patient, and luckily saved him. It was this patient who gradually recovered after recuperating for a period of time, and introduced me to this business. Chu Yang's words gave people a subtle feeling that he was holding back a lot. But one thing was certain, this patient was definitely not an ordinary person. Hai Pengbo's face became serious, and he asked softly, May I ask who this patient is? Where is he now? Chu Yang frowned. In fact, I also don't know his identity, and he didn't mention it until he left. As he said, he suddenly realized something and said, Oh right, before he left me a jade pendant. Jade pendant? Hai Pengbo and Shui Xian asked at the same time. Chu Yang put his hand into his chest and said, I don't know his identity, but this jade pendant is a very exquisite thing. Before he finished speaking, his hand had already reached out. In his palm, there was a jade pendant. This jade pendant was sparkling and green and looked very cute. Yen Russian never asked for his jade pendant back after he gave it to Chu Yang. At this moment, he took it out to use the tiger's skin as a banner. Hai Pengbo reached out and took it, and saw two big words engraved on the surface of the jade pendant, Oath. Shui Xian exhaled a long breath. She and Hai Peng Bo's expressions became serious. On the back of the jade pendant, there were 8 words written vertically. A monarch's oath is the foundation of standing. There were 4 small words. A word is as heavy as a mountain. At the bottom, there was an almost unrecognizable symbol. It was very blurry. But when Hai Peng Bo and Xue Xian saw that special symbol, their expressions changed instantly. Obviously, when they saw the words and the symbol, they already knew who this patient was and what his identity was. It was him. It was actually him. But how did the number 1 general of the Oath Division get so seriously injured? And he even fell from the sky and landed in the geographically remote Zixia city? Hai Peng Bo and Xue Xian looked at each other, and they both felt that it was a little unbelievable and puzzling. Speaking of which, in terms of their cultivation, both of them were higher than Yen Russian, and in Xue Xian's case, she was more than 1 level higher. Not only were the 2 of them prominent in their respective sects, but even in the entire Heaven Imperial Court, they could also be ranked as high-ranking figures. However, Yen Russian was a government official. Compared to the City Lord of Purple Cloud City, although he was also a member of the government, Elder Hai and the other 2 would still give him some face, but they might not really take him seriously. If they really had something important to do, they would completely ignore him. But if the person was Yen Russian, the 2 of them could not be mentioned in the same breath. They were 2 completely different things. Because, in addition to being a government official, Yen Russian was also the number 1 general in charge of the Oath Division. This kind of identity was close to the center. If necessary, Yen Russian's words could definitely reach the ears of Emperor Donghuang. This was serious. This kind of identity was enough to make the 2 of them take him 1,000 times more seriously. Who would have thought that it was Yen Russian who stepped forward and introduced that mysterious guest? Did that mean that this person was actually a government official? When they thought of this, a strange feeling arose in their hearts. Chapter 1839. While they were talking in the auction hall, something happened outside. Originally from P, after successfully obtaining the purple crystal jade essence, the Iron Blood Alliance's 3rd leader, Greedy Wolf Gu Xanwu, didn't stay any longer. He chose to leave immediately. In order to obtain this piece of purple crystal jade essence, the Iron Blood Alliance had become the target of public criticism in the auction house. Those super sects did not make a move now, but that did not mean that they would not make a move after the auction ended. Once he made a move, he would have to bear the consequences. Therefore, Gu Xinwu immediately left. Right now, the remaining 3 auction items were attracting everyone's attention, creating an opportunity for Gu Xinwu to escape. In fact, when Gu Xinwu attacked Chu Yang just now, his initial plan was to be ruthless. Even if Chu Yang didn't die, he would be seriously injured. But the moment he attacked, Gu Xinwu changed his mind. If anything happened to Chu Yang, or even if he was seriously injured, this auction would be over immediately. At that time, he really wouldn't be able to leave. So he pulled back at the last moment, and only caused Chu Yang to suffer some internal injuries. No matter how good his plans were, no matter how perfect they couldn't compare to the speed of change. This piece of purple crystal jade essence had to be returned as soon as possible. If the Grand Alliance Master could use this piece of purple crystal jade essence to break through the barrier of the heavenly tier, then the overall strength of the Iron Blood Alliance would rise to another level. In other words, they would no longer have to fear anything. However, just as Gu Xinwu had thought, the plan could not keep up with the changes. He had just turned a corner and was about to return to the Jin family when a green figure suddenly appeared in front of him without a sound. "You want to leave just like that?" The man's beard fluttered as he smiled at him. "What? Are you afraid?" On the roof, something that looked like a little white cat quietly crouched down. "Oh my God, this person seems to be very strong. Master whose cultivation hasn't fully recovered yet, so I'm not this person's opponent." "Who are you?" Gu Xinwu asked cautiously. Although he had not been able to see through his opponent, his intuition told him that the person in front of him was extremely powerful. "Well, you don't deserve to know who I am. You just need to know. I don't like the sight of you. Furthermore, I really like that piece of purple crystal jade essence." The green-robed old man's robes fluttered as he spoke. This person's words were very straightforward. In an instant, their opposing positions were clear and there was no room for reconciliation. You like it? Gu Xinwu's eyes flashed with a cold light. There are many people who like this jade marrow. So what if you like it? The purple crystal jade essence is right here. Let's see if you have the ability to take it away. Gu Xinwu instantly pushed his cultivation to the peak. Since there was no way to resolve this peacefully. Therefore, he had no choice but to settle everything by force. The green-robed old man nodded in agreement. He sighed and said, "This sentence is very reasonable." Suddenly, his body floated. A hand stretched out in front of her. Looking at his posture, he actually wanted to strangle Gu Xinwu. Gu Xinwu almost laughed out loud. Was this guy looking for death? Only he had the guts to use such a crude method. He had overestimated the strength of the person in front of him. It was nothing more than that. This thought had just flashed through his mind. Then it was followed by endless shock. Even the other two companions beside him were shocked to the point of insanity. Because the three of them had discovered at the same time that the moment the old man made his move, the air around them had become tight and inseparable. The three of them couldn't move. They couldn't even blink their eyes. They could only watch as the broad right hand stretched out in front of them at an extremely slow speed. Then, it easily grabbed Gu Xinwu's neck. Then, Gu Xinwu's entire body was lifted up by that person. His feet were off the ground. At this moment, Gu Xinwu was like a dried salted fish. The green-robed old man held Gu Xinwu with one hand and sighed, "To be honest, I really don't want to rob you. So, I'll give you a chance now. Give me the purple crystal jade essence. I won't rob you, but if someone is willing to give it to me, that's another matter." Gu Xinwu's eyes widened in grief and indignation. His two legs kicked helplessly in the air. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't move and didn't dare to move, he would have spat out a mouthful of blood. Isn't this robbing? Willing to give it to you? The level of shamelessness in these words was really at the peak of perfection. Are you willing to give it to me? Why aren't you saying anything? Are you silently agreeing? The green-robed old man asked amiably. As he spoke, he loosened his grip on the three people. Gu Xinwu's feet landed on the ground again. He gasped for air. That feeling of suffocation almost made him collapse. But the ferocity that had been cultivated for a long time was deeply ingrained. He opened his eyes wide and cursed, "Give it to you? Who do you think you are?" Before he could finish, the old man stretched out his hand again and easily grabbed his neck again. Then, pa 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 pa, a flurry of slapping sounds rang out one after another like a violent storm. Gu Xinwu's head swayed back and forth with the slaps. It was very rhythmic and crisp. Then the old man put him down. He grabbed his neck with one hand and exerted a little force. Kacha! Gu Xinwu suddenly realized that his entire face was facing backwards. His head had turned at least 180 degrees. Gu Xinwu did something that most people in the world couldn't do. Because he could see his own back from the front. He could even clearly see his own butt. "Are you willing to give it to me now?" The green-robed old man said softly, "I'm a law-abiding person. I've never broken the law. I've never stolen or robbed." Really? Gu Xinwu was about to cry. What was this situation? Why did he meet such a pervert? What kind of person was this? His head was still facing backwards. Huh? My head has clearly been twisted to the back. Why am I still not dead? Don't worry. You won't die for now. Why would I casually kill people? The green-robed old man said kindly, "Hey, I'm asking you a question. Hurry up and answer me. I'm old. My patience isn't good." Gu Xinwu finally collapsed. I'll give it to you." The green-robed old man let out a sigh of relief. "Really? Are you sincere? Don't force yourself." Gu Xinwu nodded. Really? Not forced at all." He was surprised to find that even though his head was twisted backwards, he could still nod. Holy shit, this was an indescribable miracle. Are you saying that you're willing to give it to me? Is it like this? The green-robed old man said worriedly. I don't want you to force yourself at all. Really? Gu Xianwu cried. He had no choice but to cry when meeting this kind of person. You restrained me and made me unable to move. First you beat me up and twisted my neck backwards. Then you said that you weren't willing to force me. Why was this matter so strange? Boss, don't play with me like this. I'm willing to give it to you. Really? Gu Xianwu said with tears. AI, since you're willing, why are you crying? Are you touched? The green-robed old man said unhappily. You're an adult now, but you don't know how to do things. You don't even know how to smile? Gu Xianwu quickly revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. I'm really willing to give it to you. Your smile isn't up to standard. This old man really minds. This old man won't accept it. The green-robed old man said seriously. Gu Xianwu really wanted to die. You're here to rob me, but you actually said, this old man won't accept it? As if I'm in a hurry to give it to you. The old man said angrily, you're making me feel very uncomfortable. It's like I'm forcing you. Hurry up and adjust yourself. Smile more amiably, more kindly, more warmly. There's no need to be warmly. But what Gu Xianwu wanted to do the most was to cry out loud. Under these circumstances, how the hell am I supposed to be relaxed, warm, and kind? Do you fucking want to play me to death? Oh, I forgot. You're still facing backwards. The old man said lightly. Gotcha. Gu Xianwu's neck was twisted again. It was actually facing forwards, back to its original position. Oh no, it wasn't back to its original position. Because when he twisted it, it was twisted to the right. Now that he twisted it back, it was still twisted to the right. In other words, Gu Xianwu's neck was completely twisted, a full 310 degrees. And then it returned to its original position. Yes, it was the position, not the position. Right now, Gu Xianwu's neck was in the shape of a fried dough twist. It also looked like a fried dough stick. Hurry up and smile like I said. Then express your sincerity and willingness to give it to me. Don't waste my time. Do you think everyone is as free as you? Hurry up. The green-robed old man scolded unhappily. Gu Xianwu closed his eyes and resisted the urge to cry out loud in his heart. He forced himself to gather his emotions, and then his swollen face revealed a flattering smile like a dog. Senior, this purple crystal jade essence, I'm giving it to you with all my sincerity. It's just a small token of my appreciation. I hope Senior won't dislike it. The green-robed old man said angrily, why aren't you willing? Did I force you? Say it again and add the words willing. I'm not robbing you. Gu Xianwu had completely collapsed. He put on a flattering smile again and nodded his head. Senior, this purple crystal jade essence is something I'm willing to give to you. Yes, that's more like it. The green-robed old man took the purple crystal jade essence from Gu Xianwu with satisfaction. He turned around to leave, but then he turned back. Right, do you think I'm bullying you? Gu Xianwu cried, no. Definitely not. Yes, then I didn't force you, right? Definitely not. Definitely not. Chapter 1840. That's good. There are still a lot of good people in this world. The old man in green sighed. I just came out for a stroll, and someone was willing to give me a piece of purple crystal jade essence that weighs 1,700 pounds. This young man has a bright future. Gu Xianwu really wanted to spit on this shameless person's face. Just came out for a stroll? Willing to give it to you? There are so many good people, why didn't anyone give it to me? Gu Xianwu was crying. The old man turned around and left. Senior. Gu Xianwu was anxious and hurriedly called out. What? The old man in green turned around and frowned. My neck. Gu Xianwu pointed at his twisted neck, tears flowing down. My neck was twisted. You actually want to leave without letting me recover? What's wrong with your neck? The old man in green looked at him in surprise. This kind of standard twisted neck, other people can't even get it. What's wrong with you? Are you blaming your father for not giving birth to you? No. Gu Xianwu knelt down. Please have mercy on me, senior. There's really no other way. The old man in green flashed. A crisp sound rang out. Brother who was on the roof, could bet that this sound would definitely spread through the entire city and reach 10 miles away. A quick slap landed on Gu Xinwu's face. This slap was aimed to the left. Gu Xinwu's head was flung out like a ball on a string. His neck actually twisted at this moment, as if it had unlimited elasticity. It lengthened in a straight line and brought his head around in the air. Gotcha! It returned to its original position. However, the old man in green in front of him had already disappeared. At this moment, Gu Xinwu finally let out a heart-wrenching scream. No matter if it was the beating or the twisting of his neck, the whole process. He actually didn't feel any pain at all. Until now, all the accumulated pain suddenly burst out. For a moment, tears flowed down his face, and he was in so much pain that he wanted to die. But it had to be said that Gu Xinwu's neck was originally similar to a normal person's, but after this incident, it directly turned into a giraffe. It actually increased his height by half a foot. A sigh came from the sky. At such an age, she actually grew. Puberty is really late. She developed really late. Gu Xinwu let out a heart-wrenching scream. It was so painful, the two masters beside him didn't dare to make a sound. They carried Gu Xinwu on their backs with pale faces. He disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Gu Xinwu was extremely sad. Until now, he still thought that the other party was here to rob him. But he didn't expect this at all. He had encountered such misfortune because he had offended Chu Yang. Brother whose eyes twitched as he watched from the rooftop. This old man is really strong. He was simply too strong. Even if Brother Tiger's cultivation was fully recovered, he was afraid that he wouldn't even be able to withstand one of his hands. Wasn't this a little too high? However, who was this old man? No one would know about this. Since Gu Xinwu had already been taught a lesson, Brother who didn't want to take any more risks. Just as he was about to turn around and go back, he suddenly let out a meow and widened his eyes. The purple crystal jade essence that had clearly been taken away by the old man had been placed behind his, but at some point, it was emitting a sparkling purple light. This old man had tormented the purple crystal jade essence that people had willingly given out, but he didn't want it. He threw it behind his butt? What was going on? Brother whose eyes widened. He felt even more confused. No matter who this old man was, it seemed that his real goal was to teach Gu Xinwu a lesson. He didn't want the purple crystal jade essence. In addition, this old man had already discovered him long ago. He also knew that he had come for the purple crystal energy. So he placed the purple crystal jade essence beside him, brother who was confused for a while. Then he shook his head. No matter who it is, this purple crystal jade essence is good stuff. Looking at the purple crystal jade essence in front of him, brother who was really hesitant. Should he give it back to Chu Yang? Or should he just fill his own pockets? He had already sold it. Now someone gave it to me. Isn't that the same as me dropping it? Thinking of this, brother who felt refreshed. He opened his mouth with a clear conscience. Four claws hugged the purple crystal jade essence. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A cloud of mist rose. In the next moment, the entire purple crystal jade essence had disappeared. All that was left was a gray powder. Brother who wiped his mouth and disappeared with satisfaction. After it disappeared, the old man in green suddenly appeared in the air. He landed at brother whose previous position and frowned. What kind of spirit beast is this? How come I have never seen it before? It's really interesting. My original intention was to let this guy take the purple crystal jade essence back, but this guy actually ate it. Brother who had completely misunderstood the old man's intentions. The old man had snatched it back to give it back to Chu Yang. After all, Gu Xinwu had been forced to buy it. The old man didn't want to take advantage of it. It just so happened that this little kitten had followed Chu Yang's trail, so he let it take it back. But he didn't expect that brother who would treat it as an ownerless item and eat it at lightning speed. In the auction hall, Hai Lianhua was in a bit of a dilemma. Since he introduced it, then there shouldn't be any problem with this transaction. We won't ask any more. There must be a reason for General Yan's actions. Hai Xiaobo was a little embarrassed. After asking so many questions, he ended up asking about the authorities. It was as if he had used all his strength to punch a mountain that could not be shaken. The officials of the Eastern Royal Heavens had always been wary of such things. At this point, Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief. The battle had been won. As long as these two people believed it, it basically meant that everyone believed it. And from now on, no one would dare to find trouble with this auction hall. Well, at least for the time being. It was no wonder that Chu Yang was so careful and cautious. What he was holding up now was just an empty shell. He really didn't have any confidence. Yes, thank you, Divine Dr. Chu, for telling us frankly and resolving our doubts. It's just that Xue Xian and I have another matter to discuss with you. Hai Minbo heaved a sigh of relief. In addition to recovering his previous amiability, there was more caution in his tone. Originally, he thought that he was just going to mention this matter. If Chu Yang didn't know what was good for him and didn't agree, then he might as well take him away by force. But now, it seemed that it was impossible to take him away by force. Not to mention other things, if Yen Rushan knew that Hai Lianbo used such a forceful method on his savior, he definitely wouldn't let him go easily. Yen Rushan represented the official power behind him. Even if it was just Yen Rushan's influence, even Hai Lianbo would have to think twice before provoking them. The most important thing was that it wasn't worth provoking such a power. Chu Yang said, "Elder, you're too polite. May I know what you want to discuss? Please say it. As long as it's within my ability, I won't let you down." Yes, the second battle had begun. A big fish was about to take the bait. Chu Yang's words were respectful and his face was gentle. But in his heart, he felt like a fisherman who saw a big fish swallowing the bait. "I'll kill you." Hai Lianbo pondered for a while and decided to be honest. He said in a low voice, "During the auction, there were two young men in white who went up the stage with swords. I want to take them in as my younger brothers. I wonder if Divine Dr. Chu is willing to part with them." Chu Yang's eyes instantly lit up. He said, "Take them in as my younger brothers? Elder, do you mean to take them in as disciples of Soaring Heaven faction?" Yes, that's right." Hai Lianbo was a little surprised. Why is Divine Dr. Chu so excited? But no matter what, it doesn't seem like he's unwilling. Great Elder Hai was worried about personal gains and losses at this moment. He was afraid that Chu Yang would reject him, which would put him in a dilemma and make him unable to choose. Chu Yang's face was full of excitement. He laughed and said, "This? Elder Hai, since you like them, it's naturally their blessing. But, since you want to take them in as your younger brothers, there's no harm in taking a few more, right?" Hai Lianbo said subconsciously, "Yes, there's no harm in it. But their aptitudes must be okay. If they're too bad." He thought, what's wrong with this guy? Why can't I see what he's going to do? What's going on? Ah, that's good. That's great. Chu Yang said fervently, "Elder Hai, my aptitudes are okay, right? Can I also be taken in as a disciple of Soaring Heaven faction?" Hai Lianbo was stunned by Chu Yang's sudden self-recommendation. He didn't expect that Chu Yang would suddenly say such a thing. Although he had some understanding of Chu Yang's background and recent experiences, he didn't have any direct impression of Chu Yang's strength and aptitudes. Until now, he still didn't. He had carefully checked Chu Yang's aptitudes. Elder Hai took a casual glance and saw that there wasn't much spiritual energy gathered around Great Divine Dr. Chu. He roughly judged that this person's aptitudes were very limited. If it was in normal times, he would directly refuse. But now that he had a request, he couldn't directly refuse. He frowned and said, "It's our honor that Divine Dr. Chu values our faction so much. Divine Doctor, please extend your hand. Let me see if your aptitudes are suitable." He thought, if it's okay, it's also not bad to take in Soaring Heaven faction. At least I can take in 2 more geniuses. This deal isn't a loss. Even if it's a little rubbish, I'll accept it. At least this Divine Dr. Chu is Yen Rushan's savior. He's very useful. Not to mention that he has good medical skills. Yes, he specializes in curing diseases. Chu Yang happily stretched out his hand. "Elder Hai, you're good looking, right? When I was down there, many people said that I'm a genius among geniuses. My cultivation speed is amazingly fast. If you take me in, I'll definitely be able to bring Soaring Heaven faction to greater heights. Before he could finish his words, he saw Hai Mingbo's face change color. Chapter 1841. Hai Xiaobo was still feeling Chu Yang's pulse with one hand. Without any warning, his eyes bulged out. If not for his eye sockets, his eyeballs would have definitely flown out. His mouth also flattened without a care for his image. The muscles on his face changed so much that even his nose was crooked to one side. It was obvious that he had received a huge shock. Xue Xian frowned and thought, could it be that Chu Yang's aptitude is so strong that it defies the natural order? Even Hai Xiaobo is so shocked. If that's the case, his aptitude is definitely not inferior to Mo Qingwu's. If that's the case, how can I let the Soaring Firmament faction take advantage of him? Can't my dreamlike veranda accept a disciple? But why can't I see it? Why can't I see any signs of gathering spiritual energy? Could it be that it's the kind of hidden potential that needs to be checked? It must be so. Otherwise, Hai Xiaobo wouldn't be so shocked. Thinking of this, Xue Xian waved her snow-white sleeve. Her slender hand also touched Chu Yang's pulse. She used her martial energy to check. Immediately, Xue Xian's delicate body trembled. Her pair of bright phoenix eyes also opened wide. Her small mouth also opened wide and couldn't close. That way, there wasn't much difference between him and Elder Hai. Shocking, truly shocking. It was really too shocking. Chu Yang said proudly, "How is it? Shocking, right? My aptitude has shocked you, right? With my aptitude, no matter if I enter the dreamlike veranda or the Soaring Firmament faction, I'll definitely be the most important disciple. I'll tell you a little more. My cultivation speed is extremely fast. I can definitely reach the highest level in the shortest time. Really, I'm not boasting." Hai Xiaobo and Xue Xian stared blankly at someone's mouth opening and closing. They just couldn't understand what they were feeling. He's trash to this extent. Trash to this extent. To think that he was still blowing his own trumpet, bragging as if his life depended on it. Fuck. The two cursed in their hearts at the same time. I can't take it anymore. I really can't take it anymore. With your aptitude, you actually want to become a core disciple? Important disciple? Important disciple? If that's really the case, isn't it the same as wasting money? But it would be better to hit the water and float. At least there would be a sound when hitting the water. You might even be able to make some splashes, but with your aptitude, even if all the elixirs in the entire Heaven Imperial Court were to be used on you, you would never be able to become an expert in this lifetime. Accepting you as a disciple would be a disgrace that would be unprecedented, 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 and unprecedented, until the seas dried up and the rocks crumbled, the sky fell and the earth cracked. I really didn't expect. Hai Mingbo let go of his hand and sighed. There is actually such a talent in this world. I really didn't expect this. I really didn't expect. Xue Xian also retracted her hand. He sighed as well. The heavens have created a miracle. Sure enough, it's a work of the gods. Nothing is too strange. How is it? Chu Yang asked hopefully. Masters, who do you intend to make me worship under? If you really find me pleasing to the eye, I don't mind if you both take me as your disciple. But we mind. This was what both of them were thinking at this moment. With your aptitude, little brother, you're a genius. It would be more suitable for you to become Old Hai's disciple. After all, our sect is a female-oriented sect. Taking you in would only delay your talent, Xue Xian said hurriedly. She could not let go of her words at this juncture. If these words were heard by others, they might be shocked to the core. The dignified dreamlike veranda, the most proud and arrogant dreamlike veranda, actually admitted that it was inferior to a certain sect. However, at this moment, it was already a critical moment for him to decide whether he would die or not. Xue Xian didn't even blink and pushed the Soaring Cloud faction out. No. Hai Pengbo shook his head repeatedly. Seeing that Xue Xian didn't care about loyalty, he was so anxious that sweat almost appeared on his forehead. With my little cultivation, how can I be Brother Chu's master? Such a great talent, only a senior like Xue Xian is qualified to teach him. In the path of cultivation, the one who reaches the top is the most important. It's not that I don't want to, but I'm really afraid of delaying Brother Chu's future. He didn't expect Elder Hai to be so shameless. Although his cultivation wasn't as good as Xue Xian's, the two of them were of the same generation. In order to get rid of someone, he directly defined Xue Xian as a senior. This sacrifice was really big. At this point, both of them looked at each other fiercely. At the same time, they cursed in their hearts. This bastard really doesn't care about loyalty. Then, Chu Yang was full of hope as he said, "Who should I follow? This choice is too difficult. This is a heaven-sent opportunity, but it gave me two choices. It's too difficult for me to follow my brother's love and lose my sister-in-laws. It's too difficult for you?" Both of them lowered their heads in pain. Follow who? No matter who you fucking follow, you're destined to be a super useless snack. Not to mention giving you cultivation resources, even giving you a mouthful of food would be a super waste. That's simply a crime. A crime against the clan. A crime against cultivation. Xue Xian had completely given up on him. She heard from Mo Qingwu that this Chu Yang's cultivation speed was super fast. Sigh, if it's such a super fast cultivation method, he's indeed a genius. Without a doubt, he's a super genius who's second to none among the trash. He's worthy of the title of a peerless king among the trash. Cough, cough, cough. Hai Lianbo coughed for a long time before he said, "This? The divine Dr. Chu." Cough, cough, cough. "Your aptitude is a bit special." "Special?" Chu Yang said in surprise. "Is it super good?" "It must be." Hai Lianbo looked up at the sky with grief and indignation. He took 3 deep breaths and said, "Yes, but it's super good. But we really can't accept you as a disciple. It's because your aptitude is too good. I'm afraid that you'll be held back if you follow us. I've thought about it. Not only me, even Xue Xian isn't qualified to teach you." Hai Lianbo's tone was very respectful. "He even used you. He couldn't be disrespectful." "Damn it," Hai Lianbo scolded angrily in his heart. "It's really an auspicious trip this time. I can actually meet such a genius that only appears once in 30 million years. How can I not be respectful? If I don't respect him, what if he sticks to me? This is a big matter that will bring shame to the clan and the entire Lingxiao clan. So what if it was a personal honor? Damn it, such a physique is simply a super character that has never appeared in the history of mankind. When I meet such a person, I can't help but admire the wonders of God's creation from the bottom of my heart." "Hold me back?" Chu Yang said thoughtfully. "It seems that my aptitude is really amazing. It had never been seen before in all of history. You're definitely the only one in the world." Hai Lianbo's words were definitely from the bottom of his heart. "Ha ha." Chu Yang laughed heartily from the bottom of his heart. He laughed heartily. Xue Xian's mouth couldn't help but twitch, then twitch again, then twitch again. Finally, she couldn't help but turn her head away. It was really unbearable. Normally, Xue Xian would have directly turned hostile when Elder Hai said that he wasn't qualified. But now, she'd better take a break. She even had to accept Elder Hai's kindness. As long as she could get rid of this super troublesome problem, so what if he wasn't qualified? But in other words, to successfully train such a genius. It seemed that she really wasn't qualified. It wasn't slander. Chu Yang, who had enjoyed the supreme evaluation, decided very straightforwardly, "Men, come. Let Jin Feng and Yin Feng come in. Oh, let them all come in. There's no room for selection with only 2 people. All right, remember to let the girls come in as well." The dreamlike secular veranda focuses on female disciples. As he spoke, he turned to Xue Xian and Hai Mingbo and said, "To be honest, I have a lot of such kids here. If the 2 of you like them, you can choose a few more. It's just that 2 of them are really not presentable." He sighed and said, "I'm only giving you 2 people because the 2 of you came. I, Chu Yang, am also a person who wants face. I really can't afford to lose face like this." Hai Mingbo and Xue Xian's mouth twitched. "You're fucking bullshit. It's already a great blessing for the sect to meet one of such geniuses. This time, we've met two of them at once. This is already unprecedented. You actually want us to choose a few more? Do you think they're cabbages? If it weren't for those two kids, if it weren't for your good luck of having Yen Russian as your backer, just based on the fact that your trashy physique has dirted our eyes, you'd have died 10 times over. You actually can't afford to lose face like this. With your talent, you still want face? Face? I leaned back and leaned back and leaned back and leaned back and leaned back. I was truly speechless. But his mouth was full of promises. Of course. If there's someone with suitable talent, we naturally can't ask for anything more. It's good to have a few more choices. As he spoke, there was a commotion outside. Then someone said, "Clan Master, they're here. Shall we let them in?" "Yes, all of them come in," Chu Yang said arrogantly. Then light footsteps were heard. 5 young men and 5 young ladies in white walked in one by one with their heads lowered. They were all about 11 or 12 years old. The oldest one was definitely not more than 13 or 14 years old. Although it could not be said that all of them were very handsome, at the very least, their small faces were rosy and healthy. As the 10 of them walked in, Xue Xian and Hai Mingbo could clearly feel that the spiritual energy in the living room was slowly becoming active. Just this spiritual energy fluctuation alone was enough to prove that there were quite a few of these kids who were out of the ordinary. Yes, could there really be a few of them with great potential? The two put down their teacups and turned to look. Chu Yang introduced attentively. "Seniors, please take a look at my 5 brothers and sisters. How are their talents? I think their talents should be quite good. Even if they're not as good as me, they should be the best." Hai Mingbo and Xue Xian didn't speak. Because they were shocked again. Because they were already so shocked that they couldn't say a word. They almost suspected that they were dreaming. Even if they were dreaming, they definitely wouldn't have such a beautiful dream. This dream was too beautiful. It was too unreal. Chapter 1842. 10 people. 5 men and 5 women. What kind of talent was this? Not a single one of them was talented. They were all geniuses. They could even be called geniuses among geniuses. This wasn't some super sect. Even in super sects, geniuses like these weren't common, let alone appearing in groups. Update P. They originally came for the 2 people they saw at the beginning, but now there were 10. And all 10 of them were so outstanding. They ignored Chu Yang's words and filtered them out. Not as good as you? Not as good as you? This really was the biggest joke in the world, the great tang of the world. The men are yours. The women are mine. Xue Xian made a prompt decision and sent a message to Hai Yanghua. She had to admit that with higher cultivation, more experience. Xue Xian immediately gave a conclusion that would make both sides happy. Hai Yanghua's old face was already completely red. Excited. Heavens. Earth. 5? There were actually 5 of them. Ling Xiao chapter had really struck gold this time. Ling Xiao chapter was stepping into the ranks of the top super sects. They were no longer le duo. In at most 100 years, Ling Xiao chapter would definitely enter the ranks of the top super sections. It wasn't impossible for them to enter the top 3. The reason why they didn't dare to say they could become the number 1 sect was because Dreamlike Mortal World Pavilion had also received 5 super geniuses of the same level. Cough cough, my brothers and sisters, do the 2 seniors think they're alright? Are they qualified to enter the 2 sects? Chu Yang asked with a smile. They're simply too good. Hai Yanghua's eyes lit up and he said repeatedly. And this is Chu Jinfeng, this is Chu Yinfeng. This is Chu Qingfeng, Chu Tongfeng, Chu Taifeng. And this sister is Chu Rofeng. This is Chu Yaofeng. This is Chu Wanfeng. Chu Xiufeng. Chu Xianfeng. Chu Yang introduced them one by one. Hai Yanghua and Xue Xian frowned speechlessly. What kind of names were these? Why were they all Feng? Did you have a special liking for wind? Why were all of your family members named Feng? Not bad, not bad. All of them are good names. The 2 laughed dryly and praised insincerely. Well, the 10 of you listen carefully. These 2 seniors are the experts of the experts. Today, they are showing great kindness and want to take you as their disciples. From now on, you will be able to live a good life and drink good wine. Chu Yang's eyebrows were smiling as he said, "It can be said that I have found a way out in my life." Look at what she was saying. We're not the kings of the mountains. What did it mean to eat and drink well? And what does carefree and happy mean? Did he misunderstand something? Once they returned to the mountain, they would have to make the best use of their time to cultivate. How could they have the time to enjoy themselves? When the 10 boys and girls heard this, their expressions changed drastically. There were a few young girls. Her eyes reddened, and tears fell from her eyes. "Patriarch, you don't want us anymore?" "Big brother Chu, you don't want me anymore. Why?" Woo woo woo. Hai Pinbo and Xue Xian were dumbfounded again. They were at a loss for what to do. Because the living room had turned into a sea of crying. One by one, the young boys and girls were sorrowful, crying their hearts out. Well, it wasn't to that extent. Chu Yang hurriedly comforted them. "Don't think too much. I didn't abandon you, then why did you chase us away?" A young girl bit her lips stubbornly and looked over. That's right. You obviously don't want us anymore, woo 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 woo. "No, that's not it. Listen to me first." Chu Yang anxiously explained, "I didn't mean to chase you away. It's because these 2 seniors have taken a liking to you. They want to take you as their disciples. This is such a good thing. Other people would beg for it. I don't care. I'm not leaving. I don't want to leave our Chu clan's courtyard. I'm not going anywhere." The 10 of them opened their mouths and shouted one after another. All their voices only expressed one wish: not leaving. "I'm not leaving. Even if I have to live in a heavenly palace, I won't go. Even if it's heaven, we won't go. We'll stay here. We're not going anywhere. Even if we weren't born here, we'll die here. We're not leaving, woo woo woo." One by one, the little fellows' faces turned red. They were filled with righteous indignation and shouted as if they were swearing an oath. The little girl Chu Xiufeng ran in front of Chu Yang and hugged his knees. She raised her head and looked at Chu Yang with her big watery eyes and cried, "Big brother Chu, don't chase me away. I'll definitely serve you well in the future. I'll definitely be obedient. I'll definitely eat half a bowl of rice every meal. Don't chase me away." Woo woo woo. Chu Yang was stunned. Hai Mingbo and Xue Xian were also stunned. What was going on? What was going on? Now, the 2 super sects, Lingxiao faction and Dreamlike Veranda, were taking the initiative to take in disciples. 2 super sections. In the past, when they encountered such a situation, which one of them didn't thank them profusely and cry to follow them? But now, he was being abandoned like a pair of worn-out shoes. Disdained? And these little fellows actually swore an oath. This. Chu Yang spread his hands helplessly. "Seniors, you see, they're not willing to leave this. I can't do anything about it." The 2 of them were speechless. "Can't do anything about it? If you can't do anything about it, can you just let it go like this? Can you let these 10 geniuses continue to be buried here with you just by saying that you can't do anything about it? They actually have to serve you? This is really fucking bad." With such a peerless physique like yours, you really wouldn't even be able to get in line to serve them. "Seniors, I won't have any objections if you can convince them," Chu Yang continued to guarantee. His attitude was very sincere. Hai Mingbo and Xue Xian's eyes lit up. Persuade them? Wasn't this easy? A piece of cake. A piece of cake. With this thought, the 2 of them immediately took action. The faster the matter in front of them was settled, the better it would be. It's you. Don't come over." A little fellow looked at Hai Mingbo angrily. "It's all your fault. If not for you, Big brother Chu wouldn't chase us away. You're not a good person. I won't leave even if I die. I won't leave. If you come any closer, I'll die here. I've said it before. If I can't live here, I'll die here." There was even a little fellow who took out a shiny dagger and pressed it against his neck. With tears in his eyes, he said, "If you take another step forward, I'll die. I dare. I really dare. Don't force me." Hai Pinbo and Xue Xian were both dumbfounded when they saw how intense the resistance was. What should they do? If they were ordinary martial kids, wouldn't they be overjoyed when they heard that the two big sects were taking in disciples? But these little fellows had obviously never heard of the soaring firmament faction or the dreamlike veranda. But in front of them, how could this be? If they were to commit suicide so pitifully, Hai Mingbo felt that he would lose all his face. With Elder Hai and Xue Xian's strength, it would be too easy to stop them from committing suicide. But this matter didn't seem to be pleasant to hear. Soaring firmament faction, dreamlike veranda. Two super sects, forcing people to become disciples. But they didn't know how much these kids had suffered before this. Often, they wouldn't eat for 3 days. This was a very normal thing. As for the 12th month of winter, they didn't have enough clothes to cover their bodies. Being frozen to the point of turning purple and shivering was a common occurrence. Coming to Chu Yang's place, they had clothes to wear, food to eat, and so many companions. They didn't have to worry or be afraid anymore. This was a good thing that they couldn't even dream of. Now, someone actually wanted to take them away from here? You two bad people. A high-pitched scream sounded. You two bad people. This shout had a sharp childish voice. But it was the voice of 10 children. Bad people. The 10 children shouted together. 10 fingers that symbolized their resentment pointed at Hai Mingbo and Xue Xian. The childish voice shook the air in the hall. Chu Yang covered his face with his hands. Oh my God. What's going on? How could I have overlooked this situation? Could it be that my personal charm has increased again? Hai Mingbo and Xue Xian looked defeated. What's going on? How could such a thing happen? The two of them were really ashamed to receive such a disciple from the two great sections. Snatching them by force, not to mention that it would be difficult to win the hearts of these children, just the fact that this fellow had Yen Russian behind him made it difficult to deal with. And there was also a mysterious super expert that Yen Russian had introduced to them. Even if they didn't care about this, just based on Chu Yang's enthusiasm and his decision to not make things difficult for them, they couldn't be so ruthless. It was really not pleasant to hear. Elder Hai, it seems that this bunch of children only listened to one person. Xue Xian transmitted her voice to Hai Mingbo. They only listened to Chu Yang. I'm afraid we have to do it from Chu Yang. Our only hope is that Chu Yang can help us persuade them to change their minds. Hai Mingbo's eyes were full of passion. What a bunch of talented children. They are so young but so stubborn. This state of mind that is not swayed by external factors is really precious. Xue Xian nodded in agreement. Stubborn. It had always been a derogatory term. But when it was said at this moment, it was completely complimentary. People who pursued martial arts, if they didn't have an indomitable stubbornness, if they didn't have the courage to go all the way, it was really impossible for them to reach the peak. At least, it was impossible. Chu Yang, we can only rely on you for this matter. Hai Mingbo turned his head and looked at Chu Yang. This is difficult, really difficult. Chu Yang was in a difficult position. He scratched his head. Elder, you saw it too. It's not that I don't want to let them go. I also want them to have a future. But I really treat them as my younger siblings. His heart was spinning. Is there still a chance to extort them? Chapter 1843. Hai Pinbo's old face twitched. I understand. If they didn't treat him as their younger siblings, would they be so stubborn? Children's hearts were the most sensitive and sincere. Even if they didn't say it aloud, their hearts were clear about who was good to them and whether they had a utilitarian heart. To persuade them? I'm afraid it'll be very difficult. I really don't want to force them. Chu Yang sighed. His face was full of worry and unwillingness. Say it, what are your conditions? How could Hai Pinbo not see that this bastard was obviously trying to take advantage of the situation? Do you think you can pretend to be a child? Don't you have a utilitarian heart? I'm very confident in persuading them. Chu Yang took on the responsibility. How about this? Elders should know my difficulties. Hai Pinbo and Xue Xian turned to look at him. Now the Iron Blood Alliance is eyeing me. And today's matter has made me very angry. Chu Yang said slowly, but I'm very weak now. I'm very scared. If I don't help the two of you and get killed by the Iron Blood Alliance, I'll be too sorry. Since there was a change, and this change was beneficial to him, then he wouldn't be Chu Yang if he didn't take advantage of it. Taking advantage of a situation is my style. Hitting a person when he's down is my life's creed. If I don't take advantage of it, I'll be a bastard. Shui Xian and Hai Pinbo were stunned. You're scared? You showed that you were scared? Everyone could see how arrogant you were back then. Elders, what if they come to find trouble with me? What should I do? Should I just wait for death? Chu Yang said worriedly. But Hai Pinbo stared. Isn't there still that mysterious elder? What if I'm killed by them before that mysterious senior knows about it? Even if that elder helps me take revenge, won't I still die? Chu Yang sighed worriedly. Especially those people with such high cultivation. It's really hard to guard against them. At this point, the two of them were silent. Shui Xian looked at the five girls again. She couldn't stop her eyes from burning. What a great talent! His aptitude was much better than any of his younger brothers. In fact, it was much better. If he were to take all five of these girls in as his disciples, he would be able to produce 5 genius disciples in a row. Even if they couldn't be compared to senior sister Mo Qingwu, he would undoubtedly be able to secure the second place in the sect. That's a sure thing. In time, after obtaining Mo Qingwu and the dreamlike veranda of the 5 winds, the number 1 sect in the heavens would no longer be a Liduo. Hai Liubo looked at the 5 boys and felt a surge of emotions. If he brought these 5 children back, as long as they grew up safely, the prosperity of the sect would be just around the corner. The latest would be a few hundred years, and the earliest would be a few decades. They would be able to see the glory of the soaring firmament chapter once again. At that time, he would absolutely be the greatest contributor to the soaring firmament chapter. There was no other. His name would go down in history and be immortalized for 10,000 generations. Just say it. What do you want to do? The two of them made up their minds at the same time. 50 heads. 50 heads of the Iron Blood Union's experts. Chu Yang stretched out 5 fingers. Just as the two of them were about to agree, Chu Yang continued. Chu Yang continued the unfinished sentence. 50 heads. I'll give them to each of you. I'll go all out and achieve your wish even if I have to coax and pester. Since such a variable had appeared, and Gu Xinwu of the Iron Blood Union had offended him. If Chu Yang didn't take the opportunity to take revenge, he wouldn't be him. Chu Yang was especially vengeful. He would take revenge for the smallest grievance. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. Just destroy the Iron Blood Union. He didn't want to do that. 50 heads in exchange for 1 person? Hai Liubo and Shui Xian were stunned. Was this asking for a sky-high price? The children here are too expensive, aren't they? 50 heads of the Iron Blood Union's experts in exchange for 1 child here? No. The two of them shook their heads in unison. We're not assassins. We've never done something like this before. Besides, we only get 1 for 50 people. Besides, there are only 110 people from the Iron Blood Alliance gathered here. We can only get 2 if we kill all of them. No. Don't they have other people? I heard that the Iron Blood Union is a super sect. How can they have so few people? Chu Yang guided them patiently. Besides, the Iron Blood Union is full of evil. They're publicly known as a tumor in the Eastern Royal Heaven. Eliminating them is enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens, and we can also get a genius brother. Why not? The Iron Blood Alliance might be a tumor in the Donghuang Immortal realms, but you, Chu Yang, are clearly using others to do your dirty work. The two of them were clear about this point. Thinking about how Gu Xinwu the greedy wolf only took a piece of purple crystal jade essence and hit Chu Yang a little, this guy actually wanted to destroy the whole sect. Thinking about this, the two of them felt a chill in their hearts. This guy was definitely someone they couldn't afford to offend. Luckily, they weren't very strong now. Otherwise, dealing with him would be really scary. There's no room for discussion. Hai Liubo and Shui Xian shook their heads. Do you want to destroy a big sect just for this? Then I can't do anything. Chu Yang spread his hands and said helplessly, I've already stated the conditions. If you can't do it, it's not my problem. I'll still say the same thing. You can persuade them yourselves. I won't interfere. As long as they're willing to go with you, I'll definitely send them off. I won't take the heads of the Iron Blood Union. I, Chu Yang, am a man of my word. I'm a man of my word. I'll never go back on my words. Hai Liubo and Xue Xian looked at each other. This guy was actually playing the role of a pain in the ass. You can come and persuade them at any time. As long as you come, I'll let them come. At that time, you can persuade them together or attack them separately. As long as you persuade them, you can take them away at any time. After saying this, Chu Yang sent them off with tea. The two of them left helplessly and disappointedly. In the next 3 days, the two big sects reported to Chu Yang almost every day. The 10 little guys just shook their heads. No matter what the conditions were, they just wouldn't go no matter what. This made the people of the two big sects extremely depressed. Just as the two big sects were at their wits' end and prepared to take the risk, someone suddenly came to visit. Yen Russian came. He walked in with Chu Yang hand in hand intimately. That familiarity, that intimacy, this made the people of the two big sects' hearts skip a beat. The friendship between Yen Russian and this guy seems to be extraordinarily deep. Well, the risky strategy can only be put aside for the time being. At this time, Wuxia City was in a turbulent situation. At this delicate moment, Yen Russian, who was in the air, was paying attention to the big and small movements in Wuxia City. He naturally paid the most attention to Chu Yang's side. Seeing that the situation was in a deadlock, he naturally had to lend his brother a hand. Brother, take care. I'll come to visit every 2 to 3 days. When I'm thirsty, I'll come down to drink tea with you. Yen Russian came and left. Before he left, he even intentionally or unintentionally greeted the people of the two big sects before leaving such a sentence. Although he didn't say it explicitly, Hai Liubo and Xue Xian understood that Yen Russian was threatening them. If they don't accept my brother's conditions, don't think about taking anyone away from here. He agreed. I won't agree. Come to visit every 2 to 3 days. When I'm thirsty, I'll come down to drink tea. This meant that he was watching them. On the 3rd night, the storm finally came. Without any warning, the sudden battle cries sounded from all directions. The sounds of battle resounded throughout Wuxia City. Something big happened to the Jin clan. Overnight, the Jin clan was razed to the ground. There were more than 100 people of the Iron Blood Alliance living there. Only Gu Xinwu, the greedy wolf, managed to escape. There was also another super expert. The other 108 people didn't even have any serious injuries. All of them were dead. Even the original members of the Jin family had been completely wiped out. Yes, you can't wrong a good person. As a matter of fact, all the members of the Jin family had been killed by the people of the Iron Blood Alliance a few days ago. Living here, it was always quieter. Killing a few people was nothing, especially those who were not even local moneybags. It seemed that it wasn't entirely correct to say that there weren't any serious injuries. Because the two people of the Iron Blood Alliance who escaped were covered with cuts and bruises. One of them had almost lost 85% of his life. He was confused and aggrieved. What's going on? Isn't the Lingxiao clan always aloof from worldly affairs? Why would they suddenly attack us without any warning this time around? Moreover, he had acted so viciously. He had directly killed all of them, leaving no room for negotiation. How did we offend them? What the hell is going on? How come we didn't know? Especially Gu Xinwu, the greedy wolf, who was even more depressed. The last time he was tormented, he had lost so many purple cloud coins for no reason. He had also, willingly, given away the purple crystal jade essence to someone else. When he returned, his injuries had truly flared up, and he had almost lost half his life. Just as he started to recover, he was surrounded by the Lingxiao clan and almost lost his life. He was still planning to go to the auction house as soon as he recovered from his injuries. He wanted to teach the little boss of the auction house a lesson so that he could get his purple cloud coins back. Otherwise, he could secretly get rid of that guy. Just as he was thinking and hadn't put it into action, a disaster suddenly struck him. If it wasn't for the mysterious person who saved him, he was afraid that he would have died there. Why did the Lingxiao clan want to deal with him? And who was the mysterious person who saved him? Late at night, in the Chu clan's courtyard, Brother Tiger snuck into the room. "What the hell did you do? Why did you come back so late?" Chu Yang interrogated. "I went to save someone." Brother Tiger's tail drooped. "Who did you save?" "Gu Xinwu, the greedy wolf." "Fuck!" Chu Yang cursed. "Humph, I just thought that it was too easy for him to die like this. So I saved him and slowly played with him." Brother Tiger stared. "I wanted to let him see the Iron Blood Alliance being destroyed bit by bit. Then we would kill him with our own hands. That would be fun. Yes, in the end I, the great benefactor who saved him many times, would personally kill him. That scene would be absolutely shocking." Chapter 1844. Looking at Brother Tiger, who was speaking so confidently, Chu Yang was extremely speechless. See, this guy was thinking too beautifully, although the design was indeed very exciting. Also, that day when I followed Greedy Wolf out, I met a terrifying guy. Brother Tiger took a deep breath with lingering fear, pointing and describing the situation that day. Hiss. Chu Yang sucked in a breath of air. How high was the cultivation level of an ancient heart martial artist? Although he had never fought them head-on and didn't understand, Chu Yang believed that the battle power of an ancient heart martial artist was definitely above the heaven level. Or the peak of heaven level, or the heaven level. Iron Blood Alliance was ranked 13th among the super sects in Eastern Royal Heaven, which was equivalent to a huge monster at the front. How weak could the third leader of Iron Blood Alliance be? But he was played by that green-robed elder to the point that he didn't even have the chance to react. Who exactly was this green-robed elder? Did his actions seem like he was taking revenge on behalf of me? Is it the person we met last time? Chu Yang was referring to Xue Leihan. Definitely not. This person is weaker than that person, Brother Tiger said. Chu Yang fell into deep thought. At such a time, such a person actually appeared? Early morning. Xue Xian angrily kicked open the encampment of Soaring Sky Clan. For peace and quiet, the two sects were stationed far away from the city. By the time Xue Xian received this news, Iron Blood Alliance was already finished. And this result not only meant that Iron Blood Alliance was finished, but it also meant that Dreamlike Veranda would pass by the talented disciples. Seeing with her own eyes that many of Soaring Sky Clan's people were injured, how could Xue Xian not know what had happened? Her last bit of hesitation completely disappeared, and her instincts were raging. "Hai Lianhua, you're too much." Xue Xian was so angry that her whole body trembled. There were more than 100 people, and 50 people for one person. The Iron Blood Alliance had lost 2 people. Now, the Soaring Firmament chapter had actually done the work without saying a word. Swallowing the soup and water in one gulp, even if it was 1 person per sect, it would be fine. Hai Lianhua was counting the number of people, his face full of melancholy. Why was there only 108 people? At most, there would only be 2 people. Even if the other party was kind enough to spare one, there would only be 3 at most. What could they do? But where could there be 5 geniuses suitable for the Soaring Firmament sect? Immortal, you're here. Have a seat. Please have a seat. Hai Xianhua politely offered his seat. Give me 50 heads. Xue Xian went straight to the point. She stretched out her hand and asked for the heads. She definitely did not believe that the other party would be so kind. He took the initiative to give one of his brothers a share. Impossible. Hai Mingbo didn't even think about it and shook his head like a rattledrum. Are you kidding me? We spent so much effort to get 100 and you want half of them? How could that be? How could there be such a logic? Elder Hai, there is only one reason for everything. Don't tell me you think you're in the right? Xue Xian flew into a rage. Hai Pinbo, we've known each other for so many years. I really didn't expect that you, an old man who always smiles all the time, who looks so simple and honest, who already has 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot in the coffin, can actually do such a weird thing. Hai Mingbo argued righteously. Immortal, you are wrong. Everything I do is for the sake of the sect. Everything I do is based on the sect's interests. Bullshit. Xue Xian flew into a rage. She no longer cared about her poise and elegance. 50 heads. Hurry up. Hai Mingbo, if you dare to refuse, don't blame me for falling out with you. Xue Xian couldn't be blamed for losing her composure. Yen Russian's sudden appearance had made it impossible for them to turn the situation around. Moreover, Chu Yang's tone was getting harsher by the day. If you don't hand over 50 heads, then don't ever think of taking anyone away from me. Moreover, there was still the army of the Eastern Royal Heavens above. General Lan had a huge army and was eyeing Purple Cloud City like a tiger. If he really dared to act rashly and snatch people, Yen Russian would have an excuse to ask General Lan to send out his troops. Jianghu matters or Jianghu matters, but if you snatch someone's people so brazenly, then it's not just a Jianghu matter anymore. It's a standard act of banditry. Therefore, it was reasonable for General Lan to take action at that time. At that time, it would be a small matter. Who was General Lan? He was a saint-level expert. Moreover, he controlled tens of millions of troops from the Eastern Royal Heavens. He was one of the most powerful people in the Eastern Royal Heavens below the Eastern Royal Emperor. He was definitely below one person and above millions of people. Why don't we discuss it again? Hai Mingbo tried his best to persuade. He obviously didn't want to give away the benefits that he had obtained. Anyway, there are tens of thousands of people from the Iron Blood Alliance. Isn't it easy to change a few people? It's not impossible to change a few people. Bullshit. There are tens of thousands of people from the Iron Blood Alliance. Why don't you go and kill them? Don't tell me that you're satisfied with just this. Xue Xian looked gentle and demure. At this moment, she really could say anything when she was angry. Hai Mingbo, don't be so shameless. Let me tell you, those who want to take everything for themselves and ignore their allies usually don't have a good ending. Be careful that you don't die from overeating. The two of them opposed each other with equal harshness. At this point, Xue Xian's hand was on the hilt of her sword. Her eyes were filled with ferocity. It was obvious that she didn't exclude the possibility of fighting. This matter definitely couldn't be ignored. The Soaring Firmament faction was originally an existence that was second only to the dreamlike veranda in the Eastern Royal Heavens. If the Soaring Firmament faction gained the upper hand in this competition, they might be able to suppress the dreamlike veranda in 100 or 1,000 years. This was something that Xue Xian definitely couldn't tolerate. These 50 people could be compensated from other places. However, Xue Xian definitely had to fight for this matter. In the end, Hai Mingbo took a step back and gave up 50 heads. There was no other way. There was no reasoning with women, especially when facing such a strong and powerful woman. Hai Mingbo was filled with regret. If he had known that this would happen, he would have contacted the dreamlike veranda last night. He could have even let the other party take the lead. Your dreamlike veranda is stronger than us. Now look what happened. All the work was done by his own people. There were also many casualties. The dreamlike veranda didn't do anything. They just took a nap and got such a huge advantage. Furthermore, after wasting so much manpower and resources, they actually ended up in the wrong. He couldn't complain about anything. Who asked him to be so weak? He was really unlucky. When the sun had just risen, the two of them once again came to the Chu clan compound. Just as they entered, they heard the sound of people shouting, and the sound of many people running together. Chu Yang hurried over. There was still dust on his body. Divine Dr. Chu, what's the matter with you? Hai Mingbo asked curiously. Nothing much, Chu Yang said lightly. It's just that those little guys have to run every morning. I also ran with them to join in the fun. The two of them expressed great interest in this matter. Those little guys? Aren't there only 10 of them? Xue Xian asked. How can there be so many footsteps with only 10 people? She listened carefully and said, there are at least 100 people here. Yes, it's 103 people. Immortal's ears are really sharp. Chu Yang gave him a thumbs up. It's 103 people. Exactly. Then, he said proudly, who said that there are only 10 of them? Jin Feng and the rest are only members of one group. I have a total of 10 such groups here. The largest group has 13 people. Normally, they all have their own duties and do their own things. It's only during the morning exercise that everyone gathers together. Of course, there are also some younger ones, only 4, 5, 7 or 8 years old. They don't need to do any work. Let them learn to read and prepare to train them to be accountants or shopkeepers in the future. Our Chu clan compound has a shallow foundation, so we need to nurture our own talents. Naturally, we need to start from the kids. Chu Yang looked as if he was very far-sighted and had a lot of plans. The two of them shuddered. 103 people? Were those 10 children just a random group drawn from the crowd? The two of them looked at each other. They saw the passion and greed in each other's eyes. Although they knew that the chances were not very high, but what if there were still good seedlings? As long as there were 3 to 5 more, it would be good too. Can we go and take a look at the place where these kids run? Hearing their cheerful voices, I feel so much younger. Haimin Bo looked at Chu Yang politely and gracefully to ask for his opinion. Of course, Chu Yang looked as if he had not thought of anything. He invited them warmly, please, the two of you, this way please. This was a small independent courtyard. It did not occupy a large area. Running in circles, the length of one circle was only 300 feet. The team of 100 people was scattered at the back and the front. At the front were children of 12 or 14 years old. Behind them were some little radish heads. They were rolling and crawling all the way. Beside them, there were people shouting, 121, 121, 121. Seeing these over 100 kids, Xue Xian and Haimin Bo's eyes froze. They were shocked, speechless again. What's wrong with me recently? Why do I have to be shocked again and again? Looking at them one by one, it was as if they were looking at priceless treasures. There were both boys and girls, both big and small, both handsome and ugly, but, without exception, all of them were geniuses. There was no lack of super geniuses. The two of them almost drooled. Among them, the child with the worst aptitude actually had the same aptitude as the 10 or so contestants that their sect was nurturing. Could it be that we are dreaming again? Such a beautiful dream. Let us wake up a little later. The two of them were completely flustered for a moment. Their divine senses exploded and enveloped these kids. One by one, they used their divine senses to check their bones, aptitudes, and the light in their eyes. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.